Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. As always, I am your host, Fearless Floyd. Believe it or not. And today we were supposed to have on Daryl D. James, and I sent him the link a couple days ago and have sent subsequent emails today and have not heard back from him. But that's part of being a host of a show. Sometimes you have guests scheduled, and for some unknown reason, uh, your scheduled show, you have to wing it, and the show must go on. And that's how it is. I was contacted yesterday by somebody, and they wanted to do a show, and we've been communicating back and forth, and hopefully they will pop up here behind the scenes backstage, and I'll bring them on. But guess what? I'm prepared. Because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be prepared for anything and everything at any time. And well, here I am. I'm prepared. So let me go run through this real quick for you guys. Yes, I'm going to do a little promotion. So is what it is. Oh, let me go home. Whoop, there we go. Boom. All right. Here's my homepage. You want to email me? Just click on that link. I'll take you straight to it. But guess what? We've got some new books. And I know these aren't very legible. I have to redo them. And that's partly because Anne doesn't know, well, she does now. She didn't know the formatting. So these are available. She wrote these, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. This is a revocable living trust class, irrevocable trust class, dynasty, or a perpetual family trust. Oh, I'm sorry, not classes. These are books. Blah. They're all $49.99 each. Hello. Last call. Please. Yep, always. And run your trust like a pro. And well, looks like I got to go redo these because they're wonky. But this one, Asset Protection Trust, this one's $49.99. Canada. If you're in Canada, you need a revocable trust. Here's the book for you. So I'll go back and reformat all these. I don't know why. Yeah, they should look like this. But anyway, tailor-made trust, the classes, the books, etc., etc., etc. That's on my website. Go check that out if you want. I just want to let you guys know. 2 new books are out. Canada, gotcha. Australia, New Zealand. I don't know when she's going to send me. Excuse me. I don't know when she's going to send me those books. When she does, I will post them. I will let you know about them. But here's something for you guys. Get the original popped up. And as you know, I am in Houston, Texas. I'm from Houston, Texas. I was born and raised here. And Houston, we have a problem. Absolutely, we do. As you see right there, data shows 189 bodies recovered from Houston bayous in the last 8 years, folks. This is getting crazy, actually. This is by Jaewon Jung, reporter, published October 28, 2025. KPRC, this is a local NBC affiliate here in Houston, Texas. KPRC requested data from January 2015 until now, but the Harris County Medical Examiner's Office was only able to provide data from January 2017. Here's what we found. In 2017, there were 18 bodies. 2018, 17 bodies. 2019, 12. 2020, 26. 2021, 15 bodies. 2022, 19. 2023, 22. 2024, 34. 2025, 27. And we still have 60 days roughly remaining in the year. They even broke it down by zip code. 77002 is downtown proper. 023 is the east side. 0003 or 003 is east downtown where I frequent. There's the old Bloody Nickel right there, 5th Ward. And it's actually good to see that none are in my jurisdiction, 77040 or 092 or 018. Because originally, when I moved here, our zip code was 77018, and then it changed to 092, and I moved about 2 miles from there, and now I'm in 040. I wanted to let you know that there is an issue here. There is a problem in Houston, Texas, obviously, and I don't know what they're going to do about it. And I will go and change everything. Why do I have that's why I have a black screen. Let's see if that popped up. There we am. All right. Looks like I'm not having any issues with StreamYard today, which is a good thing. So let me run through the news with you guys because I have a lot to present to you. You're going to get some edumacation today. I hope you enjoy it. Amazon plans to replace more than 500,000 jobs with robots. Folks, I've been telling you this. Internal documents show the company that changed how people shop has a far-reaching plan to automate 75% of its operations. This is from the New York Times. You have a preview of this article. No. Over the past 2 decades, no company has done more to shape the American workplace than Amazon. In its ascent to become the nation's second largest employer behind Walmart, it has hired hundreds of thousands of warehouse workers, built an army of contract drivers, and pioneered using technology to hire, monitor, and manage employees. Now, interviews and a cache of internal strategy documents viewed by the New York Times reveal that Amazon executives believe the company is on the cusp of its next big workplace shift, replacing more than 500,000 jobs with robots. Amazon's U.S. workforce has more than tripled since 2018. Almost 1.2 million people are employed by Amazon here in the United States. But Amazon's automation team expects the company can avoid hiring more than 160,000 people in the United States it would otherwise need by 2027. That would save about 30 cents on each item that Amazon picks, packs, and delivers to customers. Executives told Amazon's board last year that they hoped robotic automation would allow the company to continue to avoid adding to its U.S. workforce in the coming years, even though they expect to sell twice as many products by 2033. That would translate to more than 600,000 people whom Amazon didn't need to hire. At facilities designed for super fast deliveries, Amazon is trying to create warehouses that employ few humans at all. And documents show that Amazon's robotic team has an ultimate goal to automate 75% of its operations. And I'll just read the end of it. Amazon is so convinced this automated future is around the corner that it has started developing plans to mitigate the fallout in communities that may lose jobs. Documents show the company has considered building an image as a good corporate citizen through greater participation in community events such as parades and Toys for Tots. Oh yeah, that'll help pay people's mortgages and their rent and their utilities, their car payment, their insurance. Oh yeah, absolutely. So there you go. That's the end of the article. Just want to give that to you and let you know what is coming. Now, for those of you who do pay attention to me and my show, yes, there we go. I just told you Walmart is the largest employer in the United States, right? And I have worked 3 out of the last 4 Walmart conventions. I have seen the technology that they have for the future. Absolutely. Guess what? We're not part of it. It's going to be all automated. They're going to have warehouses that are going to be dark warehouses that are going to operate 24/7, 365, no time off, no holidays, no vacations, just seamless robots working in the dark all the time. No humans needed until one of the robots malfunctions, and eventually the robots will take care of that. Absolutely. So stay tuned for that one. That's coming, folks. All right, here's one on our old buddy, old pal, Elon Musk. What is Elon Musk up to? You know, the old Iron Man. Well, Elon Musk frets over controlling Tesla's robot army as car biz rebounds slightly. Tesla's profit actually fell 37% compared to the same period last year, despite buyers rushing to take advantage of the expiring EV tax credit. Let's go look at the original. There's your Iron Man. All right, who wrote this? We got any credits? Sean O'Kane. This is from TechCrunch. Tesla's record sales quarter has offered the company a reprieve after a terrible start in 2025, but CEO Elon Musk is focused on building a robot army and making good on his years-long unfulfilled promise of self-driving cars, tasks he needs to accomplish if he is to unlock the full value of the $1 trillion compensation package that Tesla wants to award him. Hold on, let me repeat that. Tasks he needs to accomplish if he is to unlock the full value of the $1 trillion compensation package that Tesla wants to award him. So it looks like if he can get this robot army, that he already has a deal, a contract worked out with Tesla that would bestow upon Elon to become, obviously, the world's wealthiest individual at $1 trillion. Wow, what a compensation package, right? The tension between Tesla's current automotive-driven business and the AI-centric one that Musk is aiming for has never been more clear. Tesla delivered a record number of vehicles in the third quarter of 2025, thanks in large part to a rush of customers in the United States who took advantage of the expiring federal EV tax credit. But that record quarter did not lead to greater earnings. In fact, Tesla's third quarter profit was still 37% lower than it was the same quarter of last year in 2024. Tesla shipped 497,099 cars in the third quarter. Wow, that's quite an achievement, which generated $21.2 billion in automotive revenue, the company's best revenue figure in more than a year. But Tesla only pulled in a profit of $1.4 billion. Oh man, sucks to be them, right? Up just $200 million from the second quarter of this year, according to a shareholder letter released Wednesday. The record quarter came after an abysmal start to the year for Tesla, which saw sales drop mightily, in part because of Musk's involvement with the Trump administration. We remember all that. So blah, 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 blah. Let's get down here to the nitty gritty. Musk said, "We are at a critical inflection point for Tesla and our strategy going forward as we bring AI into the real world. beginning of scaling quite massively, full self-driving and robo-taxi, and fundamentally changing the nature of transport. All of this will put even more pressure on the company's final quarter of the year coming up. Blah, 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 blah. I don't want to bore you with all this. I got a lot of information to cover for you guys. Musk further said, let me see, Tesla offered little new info on those programs in Wednesday's letter. Musk said on the conference call that Tesla may start building a third version of Optimus, which is their humanoid android, in the first quarter of 2026. He had once promised to build thousands of robots by the end of this year, 2026, but as the information has reported, Tesla has run into problems in early production with Optimus. And I'm quoting, bringing Optimus to the market is an incredibly difficult task, to be clear. It's not like some walk in the park. He continued, you can actually create a world where there is no poverty, where everyone has access to the finest medical care. Optimus will be an incredible surgeon. Wow, there you go. So you already know who's going to cut on you. It will be Optimus. The increased focus on AI, robotics, and self-driving cars, including starting production of the two-seater Cybercab, will also cost Tesla more next year. Taneja said capital expenditures will increase substantially in 2026 thanks to those projects. He also said Tesla has had to increase employee-related spending to stay competitive in the ongoing AI talent war. Tesla's third quarter results come amid a backdrop of the company's proposal to hand $1 trillion worth of shares to Musk. That plan is up for a vote at the Tesla's annual shareholder meeting within a few weeks. The company and Musk are campaigning hard, while advisor groups like ISS and Glass Lewis are recommending against the pay package. It's most likely going to pass, giving the overwhelming support from shareholders on previous efforts. That hasn't stopped Musk from threatening to walk away from Tesla if the package is not approved. On Wednesday's call, he reiterated his claim that he cares more about the voting control the compensation package would afford him than the money. Well, of course, if you're the world's wealthiest individual, do you really care if you're going to become the world's wealthy individual again? Right? And I'm quoting, I just don't feel comfortable building a robot army here and then being ousted because some asinine recommendations from ISS and Glass Lewis, who have no friggin' clue. I mean, those guys are corporate terrorists, close quote, Musk said. So there you go. We are on the cusp of the first trillionaire, and it may be Elon Musk. You read it here. You heard it here first, as usual. Right? I know. I'm always the one to break the news to you. My guest said she would be on about 10 after. It is 19 after. She's not backstage. So we'll continue on because I am prepared to do a show. So that's what you do. Let's see. Oh, y'all ready for a new phone? Y'all check this out. This phone's going to trip you out. Probably have not seen it, not heard of it, but here it is. This is a quick little video. It's only 2 minutes. 3 minutes.
this one. Good call. I'll go with yours.
What y'all think about that little phone? Oh, I'm frozen again. Let me restart it. All right. Sorry about that. Like I said, StreamYard, I don't know what the deal is with StreamYard. I'm going to beat them up every chance I get. I keep sending them texts and emails. StreamYard customer service is non existent. It does not exist. There's no person you can talk to, there's no place you can get immediate assistance. And that's what their CEO, that guy, that he needs to take a long walk on a short pier with lead weights. I'm gonna say that. That dude's trash, freaking garbage. Yeah. I have my own opinion, and I'm able to express it because I cannot get anybody from StreamYard to reply to me, period. Send them my phone number, email address, everything. It sucks. Garbage. But I could go back to Zoom, but, sucks. All right, next up we have, well, I don't know why it took me there. It's not where I was at. On that one, there we go. All right, here we go. We have another article. This is from Caltech. That would be California Technology University. And Caltech and Technology Innovation Institute demo multi-robot response team. This is from October 14th, 2025. Introducing X1, the world's first multi-robot system that integrates a humanoid robot with a transforming drone that can launch off the humanoid's back and later drive away. Did you hear me correctly? So this is like a Swiss Army knife for, I don't know, robots, androids. The new multimodal system is one product of a 3-year collaboration between Caltech Center for Autonomous Systems and Technologies, CAST, and the Technology Innovation Institute, TII, in Abu Dhabi, and United Arab Emirates. The robotic system demonstrates the kind of innovative and forward-thinking projects that are possible with the combined global expertise of the collaborators in autonomous systems, artificial intelligence, robotics, and propulsion systems. Right now, robots can fly, robots can drive, robots can walk. Those are all great in certain scenarios, says Aaron Ames, the director of Booth Cressa Leadership Chair of CAST and the Bren Professor of Mechanical and Civil Engineering, Control and Dynamical Systems and Aerospace at Caltech. But how do we take those different locomotion modalities and put them together in a single package so we can excel from the benefits of all these while mitigating the downfalls that each of them have? So basically what they've done is they've taken these humanoids and let's see what this is like.
CAST, Center for Autonomous System Technologies, created a venue for collaborations between TII and Caltech. And with this collaboration, we tested the limits of both groups in creating new ideas and new systems.
TII is the Technology Innovation Institute in Abu Dhabi. We have been trying to establish a leading role in the technology development in the country. And we believe that we succeeded on this.
Because of the deep collaboration with TII, we're able to take on these much bigger problems. So it is really a blending of these two worlds together. And the hope is we get the best of both worlds. So right now, robots can fly, robots can drive, and robots can walk. Those are all great in certain scenarios. But how do we take those different locomotion modalities and put them together into a single robot that has the ability to walk, fly, and drive? When is the sum of the system greater than its parts?
This is quite an interesting challenge to overcome because this is one of the first attempts to have a multimodal robot where we bring three different modalities together. There is the ground vehicle, there is the aerial vehicle, there is the humanoid. And all of this comes together in some sort of collaboration that allows us to overcome many use cases.
The challenge is how to bring different robots to work together. So basically, they become one system providing different functionalities. With this collaboration, we found a perfect match to solve this.
We installed different kind of sensors from LiDAR, cameras, rangefinders, and we combined all this data to understand where the robot is. And the robot understands where it is in order to go from one point to another. So we bring the capability of the robots to move around with the autonomy. And this is what makes the collaboration very fruitful.
The white drone that we built for this demo contains the TII's cutting-edge flight controller and computer technology called the Saluki. And so by putting that into our drone, we're opening new possibilities for autonomy and safe autonomy that is not subject to cyber attacks or other adversarial attacks on our drone.
My part was to say, one, how do we attach this drone to the humanoid robot, but also how do we actually lease a drone from a humanoid robot? This is the demo. It was a very important step towards this multi-robot collaborations. This is the first time a drone and a humanoid has been working together in this way.
And doing this face-to-face, interacting with people, starting to get to know each other, this is very important.
Our TII collaborators focused on autonomy, and Caltech's team focused on locomotion modeling and controls, and Northeastern focused on morphing robot design, mainly M4 robot design. And we had a great connectivity between the research members.
Working with TII has been a great opportunity for me. It's an experience that opens our horizons in terms of how we can create new technologies with partners from across the globe and tackle challenging problems that are relevant not only here, but in an international context.
We are very appreciative of the leadership at TII. They align very much with what we think future of science and technology should be.
Frozen again. Be right back. All right. Man, StreamYard sucks. It sucks. All right, so there you go with the Swiss Army knife of AI and robotics. What that looks like. Yeah, I've got some more. So I still don't have my guest backstage, but you know, it is what it is. Let me go show you this, and I'm just going to continue on. And here we go in West Texas, folks. West Texas. This is from KACU 89.5 FM NPR, Abilene's public radio. Remote West Texas Observatory connects distant astrophotographers to great views of the heavens. This is by Josiah Wanell, published October 8th, 2025. For people living in West Texas, the night sky might feel ordinary, but for astronomers and photographers around the world, it's something rare. One of the clearest, darkest windows into the universe left in the United States. Absolutely. You get over there in the mountains in Big Bend, West Texas, and yes, very, very, very starry skies. The reason is there are no light pollution, basically. So when you look at, you're in an airplane, you're flying over a big city, you can see all the lights. So that's what makes West Texas very unique. This is known. People in Texas know this. That's what makes Starfront Observatory so unique. Opened in 2024 near a small town south of Abilene, the project gives people everywhere the ability to see the Texas night sky without being there in person. Founded by Bray Falls, Starfront has quickly become the world's largest remote observatory by a number of telescopes. The idea is simple but transformative. Telescope owners ship their equipment to the observatory where it's housed under pristine skies. From anywhere in the world, they can log in and control their telescope as if they were standing right beneath it. For astrophotographer Carlos Garcia, who lives in Miami, that access is life-changing. Surrounded by heavy light pollution in his neighborhood, he thought deep sky astrophotography was out of reach. Now, from his computer or phone, he connects directly to his telescope in West Texas and captures images that would otherwise be impossible in his city. West Texas offers the perfect conditions for this kind of work. The region has few large cities, plenty of wide open spaces, and a high altitude that keeps the air dry and clear. ACU physics professor Donald Eisenhower explains, and I quote, "By the time you get to West Texas, the main difference is altitude. The lower you go, the worse it is. As you head towards the coast, things are worse," close quote. He's talking about light pollution. Falls says the location struck the right balance, reliable power, fiber internet, and some of the darkest skies in the country. That combination makes it possible for hundreds of users to upload and process enormous image files from their telescopes without being on site. To protect the equipment, Starfront uses an automated roof system. If clouds, rain, or high winds roll in, the observatory seals itself, ensuring dozens of telescopes stay safe until the skies clear again. Well, I see this as a business opportunity. If you have a good telescope, you can actually rent it out, kind of like an Airbnb, wouldn't you say? There you go. Y'all go make some money. The project isn't just about infrastructure, though. It's about people. Absolutely. Falls and his team support everyone from first-time stargazers to professionals chasing fine details of distant galaxies. Quoting, "We answer everyone's questions, whether they are a total beginner or someone super experienced," he says. For many, seeing stars this way can be profound. Longtime astrophotographer Paul Wertheim, I hope I pronounced that correctly. If I didn't, please forgive me, Paul, notes that the city dwellers are often shocked the first time they witness a truly dark sky. He compares it to reactions at Big Bend National Park, where visitors often comment they've never seen so many stars at once. Boom. There you go, folks. Breaking it down for you. Starfront brings that same wonder to people across the globe. What once required a trip to remote Texas highways or national parks can now be experienced from anywhere with an internet connection. In its first year, the observatory hosted 260 nights of successful observations. And for falls, that's the reward, making the universe accessible to anyone who wants to look up. From the quiet skies of West Texas, Starfront is opening the heavens to the world. There you go. Thank you, Josiah 1L, for that report. This is what the observatory looks like. If you ever get a chance to go out to West Texas, please do yourself a favor. Get out there and see those just black night skies and just horizon to horizon stars everywhere. You'll see the Big Dipper, Little Dipper. You'll see everything up there. It's just, it's incredible. How I know that? Once upon a time, I used to live in Brownwood, Texas on the Havens unit, and I did a 6-month in-prison therapeutic treatment program there. So every day I got to see the West Texas skies. Not as clear as I would have been in a more rural area because I was in a city of Brownwood, but yeah, that's what it looks like. All right, next up on the agenda. Oh yeah, this little character. Y'all gonna listen. You're gonna be able to get you an android robot, a humanoid. Okay, it's gonna be capable. Yeah, I don't know if it'll do the dishes, but definitely probably vacuum your house, can probably dust and just do some menial tasks. These little android humanoid robots are becoming so affordable, everybody's going to have one. Okay. They are now less expensive than an iPhone. Absolutely. So let me show you one. This is one of many, folks. This isn't just the only one. I showed you one yesterday. This is another one. That's one of many. I hate you, StreamYard. You're really pissing me off. StreamYard, you're going to get another message after this video, and you're probably not going to like this one. I am going to cuss you up one side and down the other for your just total incompetency. But anyway, that was Booster. And what I'm trying to show you is that there are multiple, I don't know exactly how many. The robot that I profiled yesterday, and I don't even know who made it. I don't even remember the name. It's $1,500. I think $1,400. Yeah, and you're going to be able to pick you up one. You're going to like see your neighbor, or you might even see a robot walking a kid to school or something. You never know, or flying them, and then landing and walking back, or flying back, or rolling back. Just imagine not having to get up and cook breakfast for your kid or make their lunch. Hey, you got the Android doing it. It's like your coffee pot. I'm going to set it. It's going to brew my coffee at 6 p.m. I'm going to wake up at 6:20 to a pot of hot, fresh brewed coffee, right? Same deal, folks. People are going to surrender their humanity for convenience. Trust me on this. People are going to have no problem going into a digital reality, a digital omniverse. And it's insane what's going to happen. So, stay tuned for that. Ooh, here we go. Yeah, definitely want to get into this one. Here we go from interestingengineering.com. This is by Nitika Walker, published October 16th, 2025. Venom-like soft robot uses smart gel to morph, stretch, and mimic biological motion. A soft robot powered by electromorphing gel shapeshifts like venom, marking a breakthrough in soft robotics research. It's getting freakier and freakier by the minute, folks, okay? Because this technology is accelerating so quickly, and so many different entities are doing this. Every college, every university, every R&D for multinational and even national corporations, other countries, everybody is fighting to get this technology. So here's an image. It bends, it stretches, it slithers, just like a creature straight out of a Marvel movie. I keep telling y'all, this is going to be just like a graphic comic. Researchers have developed a super agile robot that can shapeshift using a special electromorphing gel, mimicking the fluidity and adaptability of the comic book anti-hero Venom. Created by scientists at the University of Bristol and Queen Mary University of London, this soft, jelly-like humanoid gymnast showcases unprecedented flexibility in motion and form. The breakthrough introduces an electromorphing gel, EMG, that enables robots to change shape and move with lifelike agility. Unlike traditional rigid robots, the EMG model can contort its limbs, twist its body, and even swing across surfaces. This remarkable flexibility comes from the EMG's unique ability to respond to electric fields. When voltage is applied through ultralight electrodes, the gel reshapes itself, bending, stretching, or contracting based on the desired motion. Electric Grace in Motion. Study lead author Siquan Zhu, I hope I pronounced that correctly, forgive me if I didn't, research associate at the University of Bristol School of Engineering, Mathematics, and Technology said, and I quote, "Soft robotics is an exciting and rapidly advancing field, both here in Bristol and worldwide. Our EMG robot, which resembles something straight out of science fiction, marks an exciting breakthrough that paves the way for further progress in soft robotics." Close quote. Soft robotics have long been promised a gentler, more adaptable approach to automation, but their performance has often been hampered by slow response times and limited morphing capabilities. This contrasts with previous magnetic micro robots requiring heavy, bulky, and expensive electromagnets. By constructing the EMG robot from a soft polymer composite incorporating nanocrystalline conductors, it can be manipulated remotely by electric fields with a high level of control and body morphing. The EMG robot changes that. Its electroactive gel structure allows for rapid multi-directional motion without bulky external magnets or mechanical components. In tests, the robot performed large-scale deformations and complex movements beyond the limits of current designs. It maintained consistent performance across 10,000 actuation cycles, proving both its endurance and stability. From labs to liftoffs, The EMG's versatility can make it a valuable addition across industries, including medical wearables, rescue robotics, and deep space exploration. The geometry of an EMG robot can be tailored to specific application scenarios. Its geometry can be tailored for specific scenarios, and in one demonstration, the humanoid gymnast robot used its flexible limbs to swing across a ceiling for locomotion. Researchers say the material can even be integrated with rigid robotic parts to create hybrid machines suited for complex high-stress environments. Sequin added, quote, the potential applications of soft robotics are as broad as they are exciting. From space exploration to wearable devices in healthcare, soft robotics can push the boundaries of what's possible. Think of EMG robot and future soft robots as Swiss Army knives. Their adaptability can provide a diverse range of tools for situations where traditional robots may not be suitable, close quote. That's the end of the article. So there you go. That's what we're looking at. I'm giving you, God, man, every time. This is getting annoying. Let me reset it. I apologize. It's not my fault. I don't have anything to do with this. This is all StreamYard. I don't know why. Whenever I play something, share the screen, it comes back and it's frozen. It's on you, StreamYard. All right, moving on to the next one. All right, so I just showed you a gel structured robot that can slither, twist, extend, swing from the ceiling. Wait till you see this next one. All right. Y'all pay attention, folks. Metabots shapeshift from flat sheets into hundreds of structures. The Metabots resemble animated sheets of plastic capable of moving around a surface or grasping objects. Let's go look at the original. This is from North Carolina State University. And this is what I keep telling you folks. All these colleges and universities all across the world, not just in the United States, across the world. Okay. There are tens of thousands of these colleges and universities all trying to create the next big thing. And here we go. This is by Matt Shipman. And this isn't a very good illustration in my eyes, but it kind of shows you what it does. And this is, I guess, a research paper. So I'll read it to you. Researchers have created a class of robots made from thin sheets of material that can snap into hundreds of stable shapes, allowing them to execute a wide variety of actions despite the fact that they have no motor and are made of a single flat material. These Metabots essentially resemble animated sheets of plastic capable of moving around a surface or grasping objects. And I'm quoting, we start out with simple polymer sheets that have holes in them, but by applying thin films to the surface of the polymer, we're able to incorporate materials that respond to electricity or magnetic fields, says Ji Yin, I hope I pronounced that name correctly, corresponding author of a paper on the work and a professor of mechanical and aerospace engineering at North Carolina State University. Again, quoting, these films serve as actuators, allowing us to change the shape of the sheet remotely. Further stating, by connecting multiple sheets, we create structures that lie flat initially, but can then bend and fold themselves into a wide variety of stable configurations, says KZ Zhao. I hope I pronounced that right. The first author of the paper and PhD student at North Carolina State. In quoting, for example, if we connect 4 sheets, we have a metabot that can lie as flat as a sheet of paper, but fold into 256 different stable shapes. Close quote. These flat robots have multiple modes of movement capable of jumping or crawling at multiple speeds. You want to go watch a video? Let me get that period off there. We're going to paste and go. I don't know if we're going to go with it. Pause that. See if we did. And we did not. So I'm going to stop sharing. Come back and share. And frozen again. Let's play that again. Let me do it again. StreamYard. Definitely not going to be a well. What did you think about that? A sheet of paper being able to walk without motors. Is that not scary? Did that one. Oh, and here we go. like I said, there's a yeah, I don't think I'm doing any more of this with StreamYard. I'll probably go over and subscribe to Zoom. I've just had it with StreamYard. They suck, is what it is. Not much of a better choice in choosing Zoom. Zoom's way overcomplicated. Way too much shit. You have to have basically a PhD in Zoom to operate Zoom fully for all its functions and capabilities. But there you go. My other guest no-showed, which, yeah. So my original guest no-showed. My backup guest no-showed. And they are actually in the same category. They both are allegedly super soldiers. So you take that with what you want to take it and make your own determination. That's all I can tell you. It's not a category I cover. Obvious reasons why I don't. Oh, hey, guess who joined the show? I didn't hear back from him, but wow, here we go. I do have Daryl backstage. And he looks like he's getting comfortable. So how was that for prescient timing? That was just on point. So here we go. Y'all ready to get with the show? Let me go over here and give you guys an introduction if I can find it again. I've got so many tabs open. All right, folks, here is Daryl's website. And let me get back to it. Where was it at? All right, Daryl D. James, former U.S. Navy Secret Space Program survivor. And I'm quoting, "My name is Daryl D. James. I enlisted in the U.S. Navy on January 24th, 1999. I served 7 years, including 1 year in Iraq with the Naval Mobile Construction Battalion, number 7, which are called the SeaBees. In 2004, while stationed at the Royal Air Force Base at St. Mawgan in Cornwall, UK, United Kingdom, that would be England, for those of you who don't know, I passed through what I thought was a metal detector. It was actually a piece of technology that measured every biometric signature I had, including my IQ, which was measured at 195. I was soon recruited to join the secret space program and guaranteed a position as a pilot in Solar Warden, the star fleet that monitors our solar system. After a miscommunication with a 9.5-foot tall reptilian, I was sent to mine the moon. I was sent to the mines on the moon. So we became a miner. All my interviews are found on my interview page. Now, since telling his story, he's received an outpouring of support from all over the world. If you remember me, or if I trigger some memory within you, please reach out. I'm currently writing my autobiography. And Daryl lives in St. Petersburg, Florida, with his collie, Duke. And if you'd like to contact him, you can put your name, your email, your subject, type your message in, hit that, and it will go to Daryl, and he will reply to you. And let me knock out some of these tabs so I don't get confused, since we've already gone over all of this. All right, and I am there. All right, folks. I'm very humbled and proud to present to you Daryl D. James, an alleged, I have to say alleged, because I don't know for a fact that this program exists. There's plenty of people that will tell you that it is a real thing. It does exist. The issue I have with, and as you know, I've had Noel Benoit on my show, NSA whistleblower, Man in Black, who has clearly stated repeatedly that they've wiped his mind to where, you know, all memories are gone. And with this community that of people that claim to be super soldiers or be in the super soldier program or in the NSA in these really deep, dark projects, that they have some type of machine or med bed or whatever that wipes their memory or replaces it or does something. You know, I don't know what the technology is. Maybe Daryl can relay a little bit more about that. But that's one of the problems with Noel. And when he's having conversations with these other people that when he did James Rinks' Super Soldier Activation Conference, and they were doing the interviews up to that event, certain people, certain statements, certain things were triggering repressed, suppressed, whatever you want to call it, memories from some of these folks. So this is part of how their accumulation into their role as a super soldier comes back into their existing reality that they're currently living in. I'm going to let Daryl explain to you how that process works. I know the gist of it, the basic fundamentals. I've never interviewed a super soldier that I know of. Unless you want to count Noel, but I don't think he was a super soldier per se, compared to what these folks have allegedly been doing. Let me preface this show with my own personal experience. I've been contacted by multiple people who claim to be super soldiers or been in the super soldier program throughout the years. I even have one person who allegedly has I want to say he's a captain in the super space program, and he was currently off planet and unavailable to come on my show. That's something that we've been working on, it seems like a year now. So I don't know if they're coming back on planet. I don't know if they're coming on the show. Again, the whole aspect of the super soldier program for me is just under this, cloud of suspicion that is it a real thing? I can give you what my opinion is. My opinion is we've had the ability to whatever it is that you can leave the planet, this dimension, whatever, this reality, and go elsewhere. And I believe the United States has had this technology. They have had some type of secretive program, whether it's the super soldier program or something else. The issue with, if you do your history on the all our different branches of the military, the Marines, Air Force, Navy, Army, they are all competing for intelligence. They're all competing for technology, and they compartmentalize this. So what could be happening in the Naval Research Laboratories for the Department of Defense and what's happening over here in the Army research could be simultaneously happening at the same time, and neither one of them even know that they're working on the same project. That's how compartmentalized it is. Let me get that out. So I'm really curious about this whole thing. James Rink has appeared on my show, but he just popped in to say hello while I was doing an interview with Noel. So again, I've never had a super soldier on my show, and I'm very humbled and proud to present Daryl. And hopefully he can provide a lot of clarity for this issue for my audience and for me as well. So with that, Daryl, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm hanging in there, doing my thing. How are you doing?
Are we having any lag or anything? I have a new computer, so are we having it? And can you hear me? Audio's good. Everything's good.
You're A-okay.
Video's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Little jittery, but for the most part, yeah, you're okay. And that's probably StreamYard. So don't automatically assume it's your computer, because I've been having issues with StreamYard for the last 2 weeks. Every time I share my screen, I have to come back and I have to reload StreamYard. So I'm not buffering or freezing. So there you go. All right. Well, introduce yourself to everybody. Tell them who you are, what you're about, and how you got here on my show.
Yeah, I mean, I could just start from the beginning, and if you have any questions, you could just chime in and, want any more clarity on a certain topic or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I joined the Navy in 99, January of 99. I was in NMCB 7, Naval Mobile Construction Battalion 7, the SeaBees, and came into St. Mawgan in around 2004, the spring of 2004. And yeah, I mean, I was picked up by the petty officer from the bus station that I took from the airport, and he just said, "This is a weird base, man." Like, that's all he kind of really said. And asked, clarity, and he really wouldn't clarify any further on why it was a strange base. And well, like, first off, I had to go escort from some civilian workers from the corporation Siemens into the underground base. I worked in the garage, which was, like a block or two away from the underground base. And when you walked into the base, there was like a sliding glass door, and behind that sliding glass door, there was something that looked like a metal detector. And the first guy said, "I'm not walking through that bloody thing," so I thought, I don't want to walk through it either. So I tried to walk around, but then there was like a guard, a British Army guard, behind a table, and he said, "No, you walk through." So I looked at it. I just thought, well, it's just a metal detector. I walked through. I watched them fix a pump, and that was about it. And then I had a balls to 4 watch, which is like 0-100 to 4 a.m. on a Friday. And I saw Michael Aquino at the quarterdeck. And I thought, wow, like, he's still in the military. He was a lieutenant colonel, and he was looking through papers at the quarterdeck. And the quarterdeck is kind of like the lobby of the base. It's like where you check in, where you check out for leave, vacation and things like that. If there's any kind of a fire on the base, you log it. If anything happens on the base, it gets logged by the petty officer of the watch.
Explain to the audience. I know who Michael Aquino is explicitly. So please explain to the audience who Michael Aquino is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was big in the 80s. He was part of the Presidio case, which was, I think, San Francisco, California. It was an Army base. And I watched like a Rumble video, and it wasn't like something on Rumble. It was something made for TV, like a made for TV thing, like right after this Presidio case. And I think it was like 38 counts of pedophilia he had charged against them. And they just let him go. It was just, they didn't even process him. And I asked my executive officer, I was getting out of the command, why didn't they prosecute him for any of this stuff? And he told me that the judge was a Satanist, both the lawyers, the prosecution and defense, they were both Satanists, and the daycare workers were Satanists, and they're all in on it. And in this documentary, the kids claimed that they were taken down to the basement of the daycare center, led through a tunnel that came to another basement. When they climbed up the ladder, they were in his house. It was, his house on base. And they dug up like this tunnel, where it would have connected. And they actually found remains of a child, like skeletal remains. But, back in those days, I don't think they had, DNA technology like they do today. They couldn't tell if it was male or female. It was just partial remains of a child skeleton. But yeah, that's who Michael Aquino was. He started the whole satanic panic thing. Anytime anybody ever questioned him, he would just repeat satanic panic over and over again, which is like a typical, psyop. He was a psychological operations officer, which is like a typical thing they do, where they just repeat the same thing over and over again to shut people up. And that's who Aquino was. And I saw him in his Army uniform, and he was pretty gray. He had the curled up eyebrows, so I recognized him right away. I saw him he was on Oprah and Geraldo, which were like talk shows in the 80s when I was a kid. And he asked me like, "How you doing?" And I said, "All right." And he kind of gave me the creeps, and I just did another round. I was like doing rover watch, so I did another round around the base, and that's what I saw of him. And then the next Friday, I had another balls to four watch, which isn't common. It's like only if you're late for watch. It's like, they do it like a punishment, make you do it again. Because Friday, nobody wants to be, on base on Friday night in their 20s from, midnight to 4. And the petty officer of the watch, he pointed at the screen at his computer monitor, and he said, "What do you think about that?" And I said, "What, did you get that off the internet?" And it looked like a picture, just like a black and white picture of like your stereotypical gray. And he said, "No, look." And next to that sliding glass door, there was like this window that stopped 6 inches from the floor and 6 inches from the ceiling. And there was like a small room. And behind this window, there was this like gray, it looked like. And it was more of like a khaki brown with a hue of pink about it. It had like a fold of skin going from its tear ducts down its cheekbones. And when it came out of the, he said, "Do you mind if it comes in here?" And I said, "Does it mind if I stare at it?" Because, I didn't know if it was like a wild animal, if it would attack me or anything. And, he said it doesn't mind. And I heard in my head, it said, "I don't mind." And it walked out of that room, came through the sliding glass doors. And it was like very abrupt, like it walked like very robotically, and like a machine. And it was holding something in its hand, and it had very long fingers. Like its palm was twice as long as ours, and its fingers were even longer. So it kind of had to hold its hands in C shape so it wouldn't drag its fingers on the ground. And it came up to me, and I thought maybe, and I stood up and I said, "Gun, gun, gun." I just got back from Iraq. I thought it was like a pistol. I said, "Gun." And they all said it's not a gun, and it showed it to me. It opened its hand and showed it to me. And it just looked like a silver, like a polished metal like pistol. But it was actually a drill. And on the floor, like next to me, there was this junky, government issued Dell computer. And it took it apart like a machine. Like it didn't have to guide the bit in or anything. It just boom, 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 boom. And it was catching screws in its palm as it was taking it apart. Slid the top off, and it popped out 2 gigs of RAM, and it reached up on the table and put it down because it was short, and it grabbed 2 more gigs of RAM, and it put them in, it slid it back down, and it kind of just like flicked its wrist and set a screw in between its fingers like perfectly, and it put it together almost as quickly as it took it apart. And then it just stood there and it looked at me. And I remember I looked up like this at this side, and it turned its head for me, and it would move back and forth, and it moved its hands back and forth for me when I looked at its hands. And it was just, naked. It had no navel, no nipples, no genitals. It was just smooth. And after a while, I got kind of bored with it, and it walked back into the underground base. I was just looking at it. And I remember the petty officer of the watch said, "Do you think you could work around something like that?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't see why not." And I remember I was pinching my thigh the whole time. You have a question?
No, I'm in Houston, and we have a shitty grid here.
Mm-hmm.
And my electricity has been flickering for the last 3 or 4 days, and it reset my router. So I had to go to my mobile hotspot, and now I actually have Wi-Fi back. So sorry for that. So let's see if I can transfer back over to, because it's not picking up. This laptop's on the Wi-Fi. This one's on the hotspot. I don't understand why it's not picking up my Wi-Fi. There it is. Are you good?
Yeah, I can still see you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're good to go. Sorry about that.
All right. Yeah, and I remember that I was pinching my thigh like as hard as I could with my, my thumb and my index finger. I was sitting down when it happened, and the petty officer of the watch said, "Do you think you're dreaming?" And I said, "No, I want to have a mark or something in case you erase my mind, so I'll remember this." And he said, "You'll remember, at least now." And then he pointed at the computer monitor and he goes, "You're the second smartest person on base." And he goes, "Look," and he showed me like these color-coded lines, and they kind of went up and down a little bit. And there was one right above me, and I was right below it. And then there was like a gap, and then there was like the other guys, like all these little lines, like these color-coded lines. And I said, "Well, how smart? Like 140, 150 IQ?" And he said, "More like 190, 185." And asked me why I was a SeaBee, and I told him I got a marijuana paraphernalia charge when I was like 18 or 19, and I didn't join until I was 21. So all I could do was construction or be a cook. And he said, "Well, that won't affect you here." And he was asking me if I had any hobbies, and I said, "Well, I used to play classical guitar." And he said, "Well, they'll like that." And I said, "What do you mean, who?" I said, what do you mean they?" And he said, "Well, there's Germans up there." And I said, "Up where?" And he said, "Like in the moon and beyond." And I said, "You mean like space?" And he said, "Yeah, it's something like that." They really didn't call it space. And yeah, he was just asking me like all these questions, and I don't know, I was kind of like losing my mind as because I just saw this thing and it was very strange. And he said, "You need to go for another round." So I did another round, and I remember I looked up, at the sky. It was night, and it was one of the few nights in like England where it was clear, and I could see the Milky Way belt and everything. I was like in the countryside, and I was kind of like in awe. And I mean, that was about it for that night. And then I remember the guys in the barracks. We were playing that video game Halo, and it was like a couple nights they talked about it, and did you see that reptile today? And I said, "What do you mean reptile?" And they said, "Well, there's reptiles underground and they talk to you." And I didn't even know they were like humanoid. I was just like assuming it was like some sort of like a monitor lizard that was walking around talking to people in these caverns or something in these underground caves in the underground base. And I really didn't work in the base that much in the underground base, so I really didn't know. And they said, "No, they're humanoid like us, and they stand upright and they can talk to you, they can speak." And then some of them went on about like elongated skulls are in the underground, caverns as well, underground bases. And I think they said like their average IQ was 160. So like, a genius level, like a high genius would be, in the 300 range of IQ. And they like our classical art, our classical music, and they're considered cannibals because they eat people in these underground caverns. And they're close enough related to us to where they can have offspring with us, but they're like mules, like they're born sterile, and but they're still genetically close enough to us to be able to have offspring with us. And there was like another night where we were playing that game Halo, and it was big back then. And one of the guys said, "Yeah, man, I was in the moon, and it was great, and there were all these brothels, and you got to sleep with all these women, and you worked in groups, and if somebody in the group didn't work hard enough, they had these shock collars on you where they'd shock you all. It would be like a, group punishment if somebody wasn't working hard enough." And then I said, "Well, I thought maybe, well, I gotta say beforehand, I talked to the executive officer. He came to the garage, my work area, which is very strange. It was one of those things where they might call you to their office, but they won't come to you. And like the XO, the second in command, he was a captain in the Navy. He came to the garage, and one of the guys said, "Hey, James, the XO wants to speak with you." And I said, "Is this common?" Because I was still new to the base. And he said, "No." And so I went outside with him, and we started walking around the sidewalk. And once we got pretty far away, he said, "Amazing, huh?" And he was talking about the drone I saw. They actually call them drones in the military, and like the khaki, big black eyes, and everything else. And they have like a hive mind, a shared consciousness, like a soul, like a shared soul. They're kind of like the worker bees on ships. They do like preventive maintenance and stuff like that. And I said, "Yeah." And he said, he told me about, he said, Petty Officer James, have you ever heard of Project Solar Warden? And I said, no, sir. And he said, have you ever heard of the United States Navy Secret Space Program? And I said, no, but I think I could figure that one out. And he said that with my scores, I'd be able to become pilot of a 4-kilometer-long starship. And he explained to me that they look similar to the ships from Battlestar Galactica. And I thought about it. We were talking for a while and walking. And I said, that technology I walked through, it not only did it pick up on your IQ, but it knew if you smoked, if you drank, it knew if you did drugs, it knew if you had any clots in your body. And I said, my father died of a widowmaker when I was young. And it was like a, piece of cholesterol on one of his heart arteries, and he had a heart attack and died, and no warning. And I said, if we had a technology like that would have saved his life, why isn't this available to the public? And he went on about, we can't do it because of population control and things like that. And I said, well, there has to be a side that wants to bring this to the public. And he said, you mean like a traitor? And I said, no, sir. I mean, there just has to be a side. And he goes, well, there is. And I said, well, if you can get me on that side, I'll do it. So I walked with him for a while, shook his hand, saluted him. And he said, one more thing, Mr. James, you're going to be escorted by a reptile, and he's big. And I really didn't know how to take that. I hadn't seen anything. I saw the drone and everything, but I hadn't seen anything else. And so that goes back to the guys talking to the barracks, and he was saying, yeah, I was in the moon, and they were talking about reptiles and everything else. And then all of a sudden there was like a feedback loop in this barracks room. And then the voice said something like, now hear this, you are now in violations of Section 7 and 8 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. If you do not stop right now, you will face up to 10 years in prison and $100,000 in fines. That'll be all. And it went away, and I looked around, and I said, are there any speakers in here? One of the guys said, with the technology they have, they don't need speakers. And, nobody... I kept on trying to talk about what just happened, and one of them said, they're listening, we can't talk about it. And then this guy I knew in the barracks, he came up to me and he said, hey, James, did you hear that voice in the room? And I said, yeah. And he said, you see those rectangular boxes that are on the radio tower? And there was a radio tower next to the base. And I said, yeah. He said, that's 5G tech. It's something new that we're using in this on this base. And this was like 2004. He said they can create a microwave beam. They can go into a room. They can hear everything, they can see everything, and they can talk to you if they want. And that was something I had never heard of, and this 5G tech was pretty new back then. And so, I had like events like that, guys telling me certain things, and it seemed almost like they were trying to kind of condition me to get ready to see this reptile and get ready to what was about to happen. And it was the night before I was going to join the program. It was going to be, another Friday Balls to 4 watch I had, and I was going to join this program. And I was in the TV room of the barracks, and the guy across the hall, he had his door open, and it was one of those situations where it seemed like he was talking to someone else, but he wanted me to overhear him. And he said, you're going to be taken into a room, and you're going to be strapped to a chair. It's a density chamber. He said, most of the ETs that we work with, he said, we're 3rd density, and most of the ETs we work with are 5th density. He said, once you get pushed into 5th density, you'll become stronger, faster, your IQ will go up 200 points, and you'll become more of a collective. And that was just like a random thing I heard right like the night before I was supposed to join this program. So I arrived to the quarterdeck for my watch, and the petty officer of the watch had like bunch of papers for me to sign. And when I started reading it, the papers said things like, the consciousness of the first party now belongs to the second party. It was very strange language that I'd never heard of in the military or in any kind of contract. And I got kind of cold feet, and I said, I don't think I should be, signing this. And, I was trying to read it, and the guy said, we'll be here all night, if you read everything. And I told him, I said, I don't think I should be signing this. And he said, you're already back there, so just sign the damn paper. And I found out later that that has to do with age regression. So they send you 2 weeks early back from when you join, because the age regression takes about 2 weeks. And they put you in like a stasis chamber, and they give you like a series of injections over a 2-week period that slowly age regresses you 20 years. And yeah, and the XO told me about the 20-year and back when in this conversation I had with them. And, you know, you join this program and you do it. And after you're done, you'll be sent back in time 20 years. You'll be age regressed 20 years, and your memory will be wiped. And you'll just wake up in bed like nothing happened. And that's kind of like how he explained it to me. And so, yeah, you know, I just kind of had the idea of like, well, I'm doing this for Dad. I thought I was like gonna release technology, medical technology that could help people, and I just signed the papers. And then I sat down. He got on the phone. He said, "All right, send them in." And it took about 5 minutes. I was kind of daydreaming, and he said, "All right, go with him." And in that same, you know, large window with the room behind it, next to the sliding glass doors, there was about a 9.5 foot reptile, and he was kind of like hunched down in the room. He was too big for it. And he was dark brown, almost to the point where it was difficult to see his facial features. He had like ridges going down his head, like mohawks almost. And his mouth went straight across and then up. And he had like gold alligator eyes, like crocodile eyes. And he was wearing one of those tight blue suits, you know, that you see in, you know, UFO lore and everything. He was wearing one of these suits. And I stood up and I said, you know, Jesus Christ, he's not going to eat me, is he? And he said he's much stronger and faster than you. If he wanted to, he would have killed you and eaten you by now. So eventually it came out of that room, and it was in the quarterdeck, and I was just looking at it, you know, huge. And, you know, so eventually I stood up and I started following it. And there was a different guard this time. It was like a young kid. And he kept on butt stroking me as I was walking through, you know, these underground tunnels. And yeah, and in the underground base, there was red stripe, white stripe, and blue stripe on the ground. And white stripe was secret, blue stripe was top secret, and red was above top secret. So white went to the fewest places. Blue went to some more, you know, went down hallways, looked like spaghetti, like different painted lines going everywhere. And red went everywhere, and there were certain hallways that were only red and they had no light. So I figured an automatic light would turn on as soon as you walked down there. And when I was following this reptile, he immediately went down one of these red stripe halls, and it was dark and no light came on. So I thought, I guess these things can see in the dark really well. So I was like pretty close behind it, trying to follow it. And the guard kept on butt stroking me the whole time. Like the second or third time, I said, you know, I'm not looking around anymore. I was just staring at its back. I figured the first time he did it, he was just doing it because I was looking around. And I said, well, I'm not looking around anymore. Please stop hitting me. And then he did it again. So, you know, I had been range coach and everything else in the military before. I wasn't afraid of weapons. So I turned around and I grabbed his weapon and I put my leg behind his legs and I threw him on the ground, knocked the wind out of him. And I was holding his weapon by the barrel, and I said, if you hit me with this thing one more time, I'm going to shove it up your ass sideways. And then I heard the reptile say, leave us. And the guy got up, and he looked at me and looked at his weapon, looked at me, looked at his weapon. So I held the weapon out, and he grabbed it, and he just took off. And when I turned around, the reptile was just looking straight down at me, and it was like flexing all its muscles. And I could see like its eyes peering over its chest muscles. And I remember, you know, the first thing that came to my head was, I'm sorry for what I said before. You're much more civilized than him. And his eyes were small, and that's the thing with reptiles. They don't have muscles in their face, just like a reptile. The only way you can tell they're annoyed with you is their eyes get small. And then his eyes opened up normal, and he just turned around and started walking. He said, follow me. And his voice was kind of like very deep, deeper than any man could be, but it was also like the last syllable he had to push out. So it was kind of like, follow me. It's kind of like how he sounded. And he started walking, and I remember I was looking around, the base got bigger, and there were like bicycles on the sides of the walls and golf carts. So it seemed like maybe, you know, if somebody had to go further, they would jump on a bike or get in a golf cart and go. And we're gradually going down the whole time. And eventually there was kind of like a, like a 3-step like catwalk kind of thing going into like a room. Then the door had a watertight door on it with the wheel on it and everything. I went in and I saw this chair. When I was young, probably in the 1st grade, we had the DARE program, and they brought a gas chamber chair in a trailer to school with like the bucket underneath it and the chain and everything to drop the, the cyanide in to start the chemical reaction. Yeah, they showed us this when we were like 6. And I remember it terrified me. And, the kids were asking, did people die in this chair? And the cop was saying, yeah, the people died in this chair. So when I saw that chair, I immediately thought like, oh, this is a gas chamber. Like, it was a sealed door and everything. And the chair was very wide, like it was made for one of them. And I found out later from the XO that he said that reptiles were 4th density beings. We're 3rd density, they're 4th. 4th density is like astral plane, spirit world kind of thing. And the reptiles and the archons, which are like evil spirits, are like lower 4th density. And then like things like, this is the captain telling me this, things like elves and fairies and gnomes, they're like in the upper 4th density. And I said, when I was talking to him about this, I said, are they evil? And he said, we would consider lower 4th density evil, but upper 4th is more like mischievous, like they just like to toy around with people's lives and stuff like that, like these upper 4th density. And so immediately when I saw this chair and I saw the the watertight door and everything, I thought, I'm not getting that. And I tried to run. And it grabbed me by the back of the neck and just threw me in this chair. So, I'm sorry. And by the way, what I was going to say in that story was we have the ability to go up 1 density through our dreams, through astral projection, meditation, things like that, taking ayahuasca, things like that, hallucinogens. So 3rd density beings have the ability to go up 1 density into the astral realm, the spirit world. But 4th density beings can't go from 4th to 5th. They can't go up 1 density naturally. So they created this density chamber to artificially push them up in the 5th density as like a way, because 5th density is kind of like where the movers and shakers are in the universe. It's like almost in the middle. And so they want to be in the 5th density to be able to compete with the other 5th density beings. And so it threw me in the chair. I tried to get out, I remember it grabbed my arm and kind of pinned it to the arm of the chair, and I saw its nails real up close, like its thumbnail. And it had black nails, but they kind of came out and then curled into each other on on either side. So they came out like a regular nail, and then they became like black needles, almost like long black needles that came out of their fingers. And, I was struggling, and I think it headbutted me or something, knocked me out really quick. And I came to, and my one side was totally in, and it was doing my right ankle. And I kind of got out of the chair because, like I said, it was very large. And, I was kind of like trying to get out of it, and I was undoing the strap. And it put its hand on my chest and pushed me back into the chair. And I remember its fingers were like up here, and its hand was like down here. Like that's how big it was. And it made that sound that like an alligator makes during mating season, where all you can do is feel the percussion of the rumble. Like you could feel it, but you can't really hear it, and it shakes the water. And it made a rumble almost like that. And as it got closer, it became more like audible. I could hear the rumble. And they got right in my face and said, "Don't make me hit you again." So I took my thumb and I jammed it in its eye. Because I was like, as far as I was concerned, I was fighting for my life to get out of this thing. And it just leaned and pushed against my chest till it collapsed my chest against my heart, and I just blacked out. And when I came to, I was completely strapped in. And I remember it said something to me like, "I'm sorry I have to do this to you." And then it went to like a panel that I couldn't see. It was on the same side as like where the door was. And it was doing something. And then it walked out and I closed the door, and I felt, it was almost painful. It was so much pressure that it was painful. And I felt kind of almost like an out-of-body experience, where it was almost like a cold weightlessness and then like peace. And I remember I woke up and I was unstrapped, and I saw the reptile with its back was towards me, and there was a guy that was in a Gestapo uniform, kind of like gesturing as though it was talking to it, but not saying anything, like moving his hands, and he looked like sorrowful for the reptile. The reptile, like all I saw was his back, but it was like moving his hands too. And that he was an off-world German. That's what the military calls him. But he was actually a petty officer, a first-class petty officer in the United States Navy. So this base, like later on, the XO told me that, like, the Master Chief of the base, who was third in command, he was a off-world German. The S3 was like fourth. He's a lieutenant. He was an off-world German. He was actually the first officer on my ship. And the lieutenant, the doctor who was lieutenant, he was an off-world German. We had like a senior chief with a mustache and glasses. He was an off-world German. So we had a lot of off-world Germans. And Robert kind of explained to me that, you know, we won the battle of World War II, but we lost the war, like, overall. And the whole Project Paperclip thing went a lot deeper than we thought, where they were bringing Germans in and stuff like that for their technology, their rocketry and everything. And he also said that, like, you know, the whole Maria Orsic, the channelers of the Vril Society, I think the Germans called them Vrillia or something like that. Like, Hitler banned all secret societies like the Freemasons, except for the Vril Society, which were mostly women that grew their hair out their entire life. They're like born in this society. And they thought they got their channeling powers from the length of their hair. And they were actually able to kind of like channel ETs, because what we think of like the spirit world and things like that, that's just like a higher density, a higher form of reality, or whatever you want to call it, than you. So it's just higher densities is what it is. So these ETs told them that there was like tech buried in the ice in Antarctica. So the Germans went to Antarctica. They took all the technology to South America to reverse engineer it. And, you know, that's why I always hear Germans are always in the boys from Brazil and Argentina and all this stuff. You hear about all these German societies in South America. And that was like a big part of it. And so the point of, like, in the eyes of the Germans, the point of World War II was not to be won. It was just to be prolonged as long as possible, to get all this technology, as much of this technology they could, out of Antarctica into South America. So yeah, I'm in the density chamber. I remember I saw 3 guys when I woke up on a mattress. It looked like on the floor of the same big room I was in, and they looked like they were wearing club clothes, like they just got picked up, like they got drugged or something and picked up and put in this program. And I was can I go to sleep now? I was like exhausted. I was worn out. I was exhausted. And I said, can I go to sleep now? And I fell down to my hands and knees. And I remember the German said, I should have you executed for what you did to my man. And the reptile said, it doesn't matter. He doesn't remember. And I just fell over, you know, and I passed out. And I came to, and the reptile was kind of holding me like a duffel bag, like under his arm. And my head was towards the back and was walking. And all my weight was on my bladder. And I said, you know, can you put me down? I have to pee. And then it didn't respond. And I said something like, I'm going to pee on you. And then I saw like a bright light. And Robert later on explained to me that that was a, what do you call it? A looking glass, which looking glass technology. He said all underground bases have looking glass. All underground bases have med beds, healing tanks. But he didn't have access to age regression. He said that was like something the reptiles kept to themselves. And
let me ask you this. I don't mean to interject.
Yeah, so
and stop your flow.
I went through this white light. I just saw like a bright light. Yeah.
On the med beds. This is my own opinion, my own theory. And a lot of people seem to say that it's military technology. The military has it. They've been utilizing it for quite a while now. You being in the secret space program and in the military, you obviously know that things happening in the deep underground military bases are generally 20 to 50 years ahead of what we have out here in the public. It's my theory that if the military has med beds, why are we seeing disabled veterans that, you know, are drug addicted, have mental, emotional, spiritual issues, homelessness, all of that, amputees, invalids in wheelchairs, or have to have prosthetics? How come they're not recycling those people back into the program?
Well, I mean, they could, but part of the age regression, when you get age regressed, it almost like it takes a photograph of the way you are right then and there. And if, say you had a missing tooth, the tooth goes away. The drones, they drill it back in. They put the titanium screw back in, and because they're basically like organic machines, they do it precisely exactly the way it was originally. If you had knee surgery and you have like a synthetic knee or something like that, they'll put that back in. They put everything back in. Scars come back, everything comes back. And well, as far as why don't the military have this, this technology, why the public doesn't, he told me that not even like politicians and musicians and movie stars are considered important enough to actually have med beds and age regression technology and things like that. And that's why I don't know if we could talk about it, but are we allowed to talk about anything here? Some people edit.
You can talk about anything you want. That's
so the adrenochrome. Yeah, the adrenochrome. They use that. That's what keeps them young and everything like that. And these pictures you see of it looks like Johnny Depp or certain actors from like the 1800s. He said a lot of that's real because these people live hundreds of years from the adrenochrome. I could get into that later. And so you're not really considered important enough. Like the military isn't considered important enough. That was how he put it. Only when you're in these programs are you considered important enough to be able to use a med bed. Even the guys in the mines of the moon, they don't get a med bed until they come back, and then they give them a med bed once they come back. And it's just part of the how they do things when you come back. So yeah, we go through this looking glass tech. We're inside of the moon, we're within the moon. That's where the portal took me. And I hear this like ripping and tearing. I get placed on like a medical bed, like a regular medical bed, with the steel sides, the railings and everything. But it was very wide, like it could have been made for one of them as well, like larger than a normal medical bed. And I heard like ripping and tearing, and then I like stickers going on my chest. Almost like heart monitor or something like that. And it was a nurse. And she was actually on the base. I guess she joined the program, became a nurse. She was an IT on the base, like a computer tech. And but I guess she joined this program. And I remember the reptile said he has to urinate. And I heard like one long tear, and she put like a catheter in me. And I saw her and I said, "You're really pretty." It was kind of like I was almost like a little kid being pushed up into fifth density. Like your color spectrum goes up, your frequency of sound, your night vision goes up. You find yourself sometimes daydreaming when you're in fifth density, and you're kind of observing what you're doing within your own future. They call that going down timeline. Sometimes you catch yourself doing it without even meaning to do it. And the person that's the you 5 or 10 years ago realizes it's happening, realizes there's another presence, and that it's like a past you observing. So like everything is different. And I was kind of like a little kid, and I said, "You're really pretty." And I heard like another woman in the back go like, "Ooh," like make a noise like that. And I said, "Can I hold your hand?" And she said, "Yes." After I'm done, she did some more things, and then she held my hand, and I passed out. I woke up the next day, and I was in this white room by myself. And then she comes in later, and she does like kind of physical to me. Like she brought out like a smart glass pad, which is what the smartphones are based off of. And it's like this pad where you just touch two ends, and then it activates. And she was able to take images from the pad and kind of pull them out to where it was almost like 3D. So she pulled out like an image of like a humanoid, and you could see like the circulatory system, and she stuck her finger in it and was kind of moving it around to look around, and she put her hand in it and opened it up. You could see the heart more closely and the brain activity. And and it was me. She was like giving a physical to me. And she said, I remember there's just different things. She said, you smoke. And she said, "Don't worry about that. We can fix that here." And she said, "See this?" And she pointed at her tooth, and she said, "That was a fake tooth. They grew it back. They can grow anything back here." And as she was leaving, I said, don't leave me. I don't want to be in this room by myself for another day. And she said, don't worry, I'll be back tomorrow. And I grabbed her by the hand and I stood right in front of her and I said, I don't know what to do or say, but I don't want you to leave me. So she liked that. And she took my hand and she took me out of this room. And it looked like it was like a shift change where there were all these men in like gray jumpers, like walking. And there were these women. It looked like we were in the courtyard of a condominium, kind of like all these floors. And there were women with, some of them had babies and they were waving. The men were waving back, and I remember there was like a tram system behind us, like a train system, and they were getting on these trains. And there were these four lifts in the middle. And she took me to one of these lifts, and it sent her. It took her straight to her room. You know, condominiums, they look like. There was a woman holding a, and she said, "Oh no, you can't fall off." And she just stepped off, and there was like and I said, "How far does it go?" She goes, "To the others play on it. They're not supposed to, but they do." And it was very Spartan. It was just, you know, like a couch, a coffee table, a desk, kitchen area, bathroom, bedroom, things like that. And she took me into the bedroom and we started to kiss. And she said, "Wait, what's your name?" And I said, you know, "I don't know." And then she said, "Come on, think about it. Everybody remembers their name." And I thought, and I said, "Daryl." And then we had sex, and I was kind of resting on the headboard of the bed, and she was sleeping on my chest, and I just dozed off, and I was like back in England. And that's like how it happened for me.
Wow.
And I remember the petty officer of the watch that introduced me to the program. He said, sometimes you'll remember the first day or two. Some people remember the first day or two, but you won't remember anything after that. Do you have any questions so far or anything?
I'm sitting here listening, just fascinated by all of this. Some of it I've heard before, but you know, never quite like this. Yeah, the main thing I have is the whole narrative behind the bed technology and God bless them. There's so many people out there that are living day by day, waiting on the med beds and being told that, you know, hey, next week they're here, whatever day. And it's insane. And I really feel for those people that are being strung along with that narrative. You know, they're putting off things, waiting on this med bed that they think is going to be available, you know, Christmas Day, some crazy thing like that. That's really my only concern. I definitely want to have you back on the show and get into the more of this, because I'm going to go back and rewatch this video and pull out specific things that I want to address. I'm kind of letting you just roll to tell your story to the audience, because I've never had a super soldier on here before. You're the first one. James has popped in and, you know, did a little promo for his super soldier activation conference. That was the first week of October. And of course, I've had Noel Benoit on here. Are you familiar with Noel?
Yeah, I heard of his name. I don't watch a lot of other people's stuff. I don't want to, you know, jumbling up in my head. I don't watch a lot of the, you know,
right,
super soldier things, and I don't watch a lot of the med things.
Okay, well, that's a good thing. Mainly, he's been on my show.
I mean, if you're under like a time constraint for your show, it's up to you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Repeat that. You buffered.
I apologize. We have a bit of a lag.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, if we have a time, if your show, you know, if you have a specific time constraint on your show, I'm fine with coming back a second time, like on a second interview.
No,
it's up to you.
I pretty much.
I can go a little bit deeper in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. I want to go deeper. Professionally, I'm a stagehand and rigger. I do concerts, trade shows, symphonies, operas, ballets, theater, all that stuff. I work very weird hours. So I may work early in the morning, be off all day, and then have to go in later in the night, work till 1 in the morning, and then be back at 8. So I will try to work around that schedule, but definitely I want to have you back on. I have another, I hate to say this, but alleged super soldier backstage that contacted me yesterday. And I don't know if you know her. Would that be discourteous if I brought her on the show?
What's her name?
Her name is Irene, Iren, and she wants to have her face blurred, which I don't have a problem with that, to protect her own identity and her safety, and I'm all for that for anybody. She has websites beyond top secret, and it's a recently new platform from what I can tell from my own investigation.
Well, I mean, I'd rather just continue on with my own story. I mean,
please do.
It's all right with you.
Yeah. Let me go ahead, continue your story, and I'll talk to her.
So, yeah. Yeah, so there was also a bar on base, is what I'm thinking. And there were these guys who were always at the bar. They were British Army. There was about 4 of them. And it was just like a trailer that was turned into a bar. And I remember when I first walked in after I got back from this program, the one, I call him the goon, this one Satanist, he goes, "Hey, it's the king of the Taigetans." He said, "Oh, Kino fucked you up. He had me smashing your toes and burning you and all these things." And I had no idea what he was talking about. And it was like these guys were just, it seemed like they knew a life that I didn't know I have. And they were just, telling me that I was saying all these different people's names. They told me that there was some sort of secret space program, and it seemed like they went back further and kind of erased my memories from all these conversations I had earlier on. And it was just very strange. I had no recollection of what they were talking about, and these guys on base were always saying these different things to me, telling me about a different life that I had, and all these strange things that I didn't get. So, I was starting to get into trouble. I was drinking more than I usually did, and I was getting out of the Navy, and I had no memory of the entire program, really. And I remember there was this guy, that same guy that was in the barracks. He said to me one time, he said, "Hey, Daryl, do you know anything about reptiles? Like Johnson says that there's reptiles in these underground bases." I said, "No." And he goes, "Oh, I don't believe it either." And he said, but he also told them a story about how there's a machine that can take the consciousness out of a body. And they have to do it before puberty for some reason. But they can't do it when they're too young, like 3 or 4 years old, because the body's mostly sedentary. The body's used almost like a vehicle. And, the bones would get brittle if a 3-year-old would just sit around all day and the body would die. So they have to wait till they're around 9 or 10, right before puberty. And, it's a machine that can pull a consciousness out. And he told me that's what happened to Aquino. And he said that something else can kind of project its soul into that body and use it almost like a puppet, like a different skin. And he said that he went to the underground base. He did a 12-hour shift, and he saw Aquino sitting at in the break room, staring at a TV that wasn't on. And he did a 12-hour shift, came back out, and he said Aquino was still sitting in that same chair, just staring at this blank TV. And and it seemed like, and I was told later that the command was kind of like, half of it was people that joined the program, and the other half were people who were offered the program but didn't, and would kind of check up on the people who did join the program and to see if they had any memories, ask them certain things about reptiles and things like that, to see if they had any memories of the program. And eventually I was getting out of the military, and before you get out, you do this thing where you get to see the Master Chief of the base, the executive officer, and the commanding officer. And saw the Master Chief. He was an overweight guy, he wore glasses, he had a mustache. I didn't say very much to him, and then I came to the XO's room, which he told me later his name was Robert. And he got up from his desk very slowly, and then he just like appeared at the end of his desk. And then he just appeared right in front of me, and I took a step back, and he took a step forward. And in my head, I heard, "Can you hear what I'm saying to you?" And in my head, I said, "Yes," but it's something that fifth density beings do. It's like they want like a physical confirmation. So he said it again. He said, "Can you hear what I'm saying to you?" And I nodded my head, and under my breath, I said, "Yes." And he said, "What do you remember?" And I said, "I remember a woman tall. She was sitting down. She had long silver hair, big blue eyes, big cheekbones." And he said, there was a boy on her lap. I kissed the boy on the head, and then I kissed her. And he said, "That was Mother. You had a son with her." And I said, "I have a son." And he said, "You have dozens of sons and hundreds of daughters." And I just kind of said, "What?" Like I found this hard to believe. And then he said, "Something happened. You didn't go back in the third density properly. Something happened with the chair, with the density chair." He said, "Daryl, you're still partially in fifth density." He said, your life's going to be so hard. You have to get back into this chair. We live in a third density world. You can't be partially in fifth, living in a third density world." And I started asking more about these people. And I remember the Satanist at the bar, when he said the king of the Taigetans, I said, like, "What's a Taigetan?" And he said, "Have you ever seen Billy Meyer?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, you have to check that out." So I watched a couple Billy Meyer videos, and I found out about the Pleiadians and everything else, the Nordics. And I said to Robert, I said, "They're the ones they call the Pleiadians, right?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "But we call them Nordics." And I said, "Well, what do they call themselves?" And he said, "Taiget." And he explained to me I had like all these wives. He said, I was their king for a while, for like a few months. And he was just basically trying to get me to go back into this chair. He wanted me to reerase these memories, try to put me back down the third density properly. And it was my choice, it seemed like. He said, "You can go this Friday, you can just wear civilian clothes, you show up at midnight, I'll put you back in the chair, the density chamber chair, and I'll re-erase all your memories, and you'll be fine." And he was looking down my timeline. It was very odd the way he did it. He kind of was like looking around the room, and he was able to tell things about my future. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm looking down your timeline." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "I'm seeing your future." And I said, "Like a fortune teller?" And he said, "Yeah, something like that." And so he eventually gets to a point where he says, "You're not going to go back." So he started looking down my timeline to make sure I survived, because he told me that most people that still have memories of the 20-year and back, that they kill themselves within the first 6 months. And
Really?
I said, "I'm not going back." So then he eventually, yeah.
That's insane.
So yeah, I wasn't going to go back. Because it's just like, I don't know, it's like two realities. He kept on saying, "That's not you, Daryl, that's not you." So it's almost like two realities that you're trying to put together. That's kind of how it feels. And he said, if you don't go back into the chair, your memories are going to come back in real time, how he put it. Which almost seemed like, as I make new memories up there, the me down here remembers them. And it was like, I can remember the beginning when he brought it up, and I can remember the end, but I couldn't remember like anything in the middle. And he would kind of do these things to me. He's like, "The first ET technology you're going to see is the smart glass pad, or the smartphone." He said, "It's based off the smart glass pad." And I said, "What's a smart glass pad?" And he said, "The smart glass pad, you remember."
Okay.
I'm sorry, you broke up?
Smart glass pad. You broke up when you said that, so I was clarifying for that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and he said and when he said the smart glass, I said, "What's a smart glass pad?" And he said, "Smart glass pad. You remember?" And when he said, "You remember," it was like all this waves of memory just kind of came over me. And then he said eventually other technology would come out and things like that. He would said the med beds would come out, but I wouldn't. I don't know if I would depend on other videos and things like that. We're not going to know when it's going to happen, and other things are going to happen first. And he got to a point where he could see I wasn't going to go back into the chair, and he just started telling me all these things, like all these crazy things. And I remember one of the memories I had was I saw children in cages. I remember being drugged through these underground caverns, and the people who were dragging me stopped for a while, and this little girl came up, like it was almost like stacked dog kennels, like stacked, I don't know, about 5 high and about 5 wide. And this little girl slammed her hands in the front of this cage, and she was white, like pure white, and her eyes were completely dilated, and her hair was all matted, and she was naked. And I kept on saying to Robert, I said, "What were the children for? What were the children for?" And he tried to change the subject. And I just kept on saying, "What were the children for?" And he said, "You remember that movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You remember the adrenochrome scene?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "That's where they get it from." And he explained to me that they electrified the cages, and that's what causes the adrenaline to kick in. They run a current through them, and then that knocks them out. They strap them down to a table, and they go to the very top vertebrae, and they put like an IV into the very top vertebrae, almost like a spinal tap, and they drain the adrenochrome out that way. And he told me that Tom Hanks was like the kingpin of like adrenochrome harvesting. Like he was like the main seller, the main distributor. And then he told me that Jack White of the White Stripes, allegedly, yeah. This is just what this guy's telling me. And he said that Jack White of the White Stripes was the main distributor for the music industry. And he said he'll retire from music in a few years from now. And this was like in, I think, 2006, because I did a 2-year command. And this was around 2006. And he said the song Little Ghost from the White Stripes is about the children in the underground bases. And, you know, like the lyrics, like, little ghost, the one I fear the most. He's afraid that people are going to find out what he's doing. But because of my condition, his condition is if he stops doing adrenochrome, he'll die. Robert explained to me that the withdrawal from it is like, say you've been doing it 10 years. You only need it once a week. Second week, you'll age, if you're doing it 10 years, you'll age 20 years in about 2 weeks. And then by the third week, most people die because the body doesn't create stem cells anymore. It's kind of like doing steroids. And if you don't have stem cells, your body dies without stem cells because it doesn't create it anymore.
Right.
Because you're putting an outside source in. And, you know, I thought I was holding a hand, but I was holding a glove. He explained to me that because the kids are in cages their whole life, they're almost like veal, where, you know, their muscle doesn't develop. So if you grab their skin, it's like the sinuate hasn't connected properly to the skin. So it feels like you can just pull their skin off like a glove. And, yeah, he told me if she got out of the cage, she would have bit you. They're like feral. They've never been held or talked to or anything like that. They're kind of like wild animals, these kids, these adrenochrome kids. And, he asked me if I ever, well, he said Tom Cruise was the main distributor for the Scientologists. And I remember when I was on the base, all the guys were telling me that worked in the underground base, you know, Tom Cruise was here the other day. And they let him in the underground base. And I said, why? And he said, you know, they said they didn't know. They had no idea. Because these guys that worked in the underground base, they were primarily radar techs and things like that, observing subs in the Arctic Circle from China and Russia and North Korea. And but he said that like all these underground bases, that's just like a cover. They're all meant for adrenochrome harvesting and the secret space program. That's what these underground bases are used for. We got into a war with the reptiles a long time ago, and we got outside help, but we participated in the war. And the war came to a stalemate, and the agreement to the stalemate was we get topside, but the reptiles get everything underground. And they actually got the better end of the deal, he said, because there's more real estate underground. And so all these underground bases actually belong to the reptiles. They don't belong to the country or the military that you're in, things like that. All these underground bases. And yeah, he told me that Tom Cruise was the main distributor for the Scientologist. And then he asked me if I ever heard of the guys from South Park, and I said, yeah, Trey Parker and Matt Stone. I watched that show. And he said, you remember when they went to the Oscars? I said, yeah, they went on acid and they were in drag. And he laughed and he said, that's because they hate them. And I said, what do you mean? He said, they hate Hollywood. And I said, why? And he said, because they're scum. They're all scum. And he said that adrenochrome episode they did where it was like South Park with a Q instead of a K, that it was actually the military that came to them and they gave them like a basic script. And, they said you can write jokes anywhere you want, but this is what we want, the actual story to be. And so he told me that was like the military, the white hats, whatever you want to call them, the positive people in the military, that they gave him that script to write that show. And yeah, he just told me all kinds of crazy stuff. He told me about the duality of the earth. He said that all worlds have a duality, and the duality of many worlds are things like the masculine and the feminine, but the duality of the earth is the Anglo-Saxon and the Satanist. And he said that it was whenever you get your Roman eagles, which is like captain in the Navy and colonel and everything else, and that the military is very compartmentalized, like going from commander to captain is like day and night. And you're told you have to choose the duality. And I said, what do most people choose? And he said, the Satanist. And I asked why. And he said, you get more power and money and it's easier. But he also said, like, the CEOs of Fortune 500s, once you reach like a certain economic bracket, you're told about all these things. You're told about the children in underground bases. That you're just told it exists. And yeah, I mean, that's about all I can really remember offhand right now. What he told me, there was other things, but he told me everything that's happening right now. And I brought this up years ago, and he told me about it. He said that Canada, United States, and Mexico would become one nation. We would push the Mexican people down to the city of Quetzalcoatl, where Mexico bottlenecks. He said, no matter what scenario we run through Project Looking Glass, Mexico will invade the United States because the border is just too vast. So we push them down to where Mexico bottlenecks. He said, that's a border we can protect. He said that Alaska will go back to Russia, that the Stewart's Folly of 1867, all it was a 100-year lease. It wasn't we didn't actually buy Alaska from Russia. And we should have given it back in 68 or 69 at the latest, but because of communism and the Vietnam War, we never gave it back. He told me that Russia would become the next world power. He told me that China would become the next economic power. And he said that the nations almost got into a fight, almost got into a war over who would become the next world power. And the agreement they came to was who has the most natural resources. So it becomes like, Russia, China, several nations in Africa, and then like North America would become like, about 8. But he said, yeah, he's like, you're going to start seeing National Guards show up to all these cities, all the major cities. He says, that's how you know it's happening. And these are the things that he told me that are going to happen first, before the MedBed stuff and all the other things. He said, you're going to see all these, changes of borders. People are going to be moved around and things like that. And it was just something I didn't expect and very odd and strange. Do you have any questions so far about what I said?
the deep underground military bases. The only thing that you stated that I didn't know would be that the Reptilians pretty much own them. Is that, were those pre-existing before rural America, basically?
Well, he said the Earth is honeycombed once you get deeper within it. And Cornwall is a place where they have the Cornish cliffs, and waves have been crashing against the Cornish cliffs for millions and millions of years. And because these waves have been crashing against the cliffs, it's created a complex cave system in the peninsula of Cornwall. And so these beings, they live closer to the surface, you know, around Cornwall area because of all the caverns from the waves. But it goes, there's an inner sun, he said. He said there's like all these cave systems. And he said where the underground bases are put, it's where, you know, these caverns get closer to the surface of the Earth. So they actually put these bases where, you know, these reptiles and stuff are living closer to the surface of the Earth. So it has to do with like the cave systems that are within the Earth itself.
Okay, I watch a lot. I watch a lot of stuff. The ancient sites that they look like they were done with lasers as opposed to a hammer and chisel that clearly we could not emulate today with our current technology. So are these ancient sites alien technology, alien entities that created these over eons, not just one created this one, like Machu Picchu or Angkor Wat in Cambodia, because those are two extremely different types of ancient sites, but still, obviously, we didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, he told me about, well, I'll kind of get into it like this, because this is a new memory, a newer memory that I just retrieved. And I remember he was telling me things about, I wasn't believing it. I was the king of some people. I had like hundreds of kids. I wasn't believing any of this. And so he said, I saw your father. And I said, how'd you see my dad? He's been dead for years. And he said, through the looking glass. And he explained to me that my dad, you know, moved to Florida in the 50s, and he rolled the sleeves up on his shirt, and he wore glasses, and he was a mechanic, and he raced cars. So it made me believe him more, because at first I really didn't know what to believe. And I realized when he was doing this, I didn't know what timelines were. I didn't remember what that was. I didn't know what looking glass was. So I kind of thought he was kind of like a demigod, like he just knew all this stuff. I didn't get it. And then I got kind of freaked out, and I said, don't tell me when my mom dies. I said, you can tell me anything. Don't tell me when my mother dies. And he looked around like he was looking down my timeline, and he looked right at me, and he said, your mom dies 3 days after Paul Rubin. And I said, Pee Wee Herman? And he goes, yes. And I said, how do you know this? And he said, because you're sitting down in the hospital next to your mother, and you're watching the morning news, and you see on the morning news that Paul Rubin dies, and your mother dies 3 days later. And I remember like that moment, you know, sitting down in the hospital next to her, and I saw it on the news, and it was just like I felt his presence, like I could tell he was there, and it was boom, all these other memories came back. And I remember talking to him in the office, and I said, you know, he was telling me things like, you know, Daryl, you were blood eagled, and I was like, what's a blood eagle? And he explained blood eagle to me, and you know, when I came back for poking this reptile in the eye, I was to be tortured to death. And, you know, it's when they cut your ribs and they break the ribs open and they pull the lungs out. And he said, your lungs only move for about 8 seconds out when they're outside of your body. And he said, fire broke you. And I said, what's that mean? He said, they burned you alive. He said, and that's what broke you. And I said, what was that thing? Because I remember being in the caverns. I remember seeing like this reptile, and sometimes it shifted. It was fourth density, so it kind of like, it was in the spirit realm, and it kind of shifted. It kind of looked more snake-like other times, and looked more crocodile-like other times. And It wore a red hood and a red robe, and it was like shiny black, like glass, like onyx black. And I said, and that's the reptile that was inhabiting Aquino's body through this process of like astral projection and going into a body and being able to move it like a puppet.
Wow.
Yeah. And I said, what was it? Like, what was that reptile? And he like shrugged his shoulders and he said, Sobek. And I said, who's Sobek? And he goes, Egyptian god of fertility, guardian of the Nile. And I was like, what? You know, it was this kind of, and he even had the human like ears under its hood, shiny and black like the rest of it. And he explained to me, and I said, what? He said it's a 5,000-year-old reptile. I don't know what it can do. Like he was like saying that. He said it could have put archons on you. It could have. And I said, what's an archon? He said evil spirits. He's like, I don't know. I didn't know what it can do. And he said that. And I said, what is a 5,000-year-old reptile doing in Cornwall? Like it made no sense to me. An Egyptian reptile doing in Cornwall. And he said that the trading routes of ancient Egypt and Cornwall and Europe itself were a lot more extensive than we're told. And he said the ancient Egyptians were still a Bronze Age people, and they got all their tin from Cornwall. Tin is still the #1 export from Cornwall to this day, and tin is mixed with copper to create bronze.
Right.
And he said that Egyptian history is more like 10,000 BC and not 3,100 like they tell you. He said first the avians came, and it's like Thoth, like with the long beak. It looks like an ibis. He said they were real, and I said they look like that. I said they had feathered heads and flesh bodies, and he said no, the flesh bodies represent the art. What the artist was trying to represent was they're humanoid like us, they're flesh and blood like us, they're mortal. And he said that the avians came first, and they built the Great Pyramids. And I said this like years ago at a conference. One of the people asked me, where do ETs get their power from for their world? Like, how do they power their own world? And nobody knew. And I said, they get it from the magnetic field of their world. And so with the Great Pyramids, these pillars that they found underneath the Great Pyramids, that's what these pillars are for. They're to pick up the magnetic field of Earth. And he said the Great Pyramids were once covered in sheets of gold because it's a good conductor, and the obelisk was once covered in sheets of gold. And they were using this power source to make portals to their home world and as a means to communicate with their own home world. And they're a positive being, so they were reciprocal. So they gave the ancient Egyptians, it was like, we're going to take this part of your land, but in exchange we're going to give you free energy. So they gave them like free lighting and free heat. But he said because they were a Bronze Age people, they didn't feel like they were evolved enough for ET tech, so they didn't give them anything too complicated. So they kind of let them to their own devices, let them do what they wanted, and just that was what the Great Pyramids were for. They were used to pull power from the Earth itself. The obelisk was used almost like a Tesla tower, wireless energy. So the Egyptians had like wireless lighting, wireless heat, things like that for their homes. And then he said around 7,500, the canines and the felines came, and they're an ET species. Avians are more like a higher density, I think around 8th or 9th. Canines and felines are more like a 5th density being. And he said, and they were in peace with the avians, like they worked with them, they're in peace and harmony. And then he said, then the reptiles came 3,100 BC, and they drove the others out, and they stripped the gold from the pyramids, and they took the power away, and they started like a slave society, basically. So that's when they say Egyptian history started, that's actually when the reptiles came, and it's more like 10,000 BC, and that's when the avians came. But they erased all that past history. And he said they look just like that, the statues and the paintings and everything else.
Right. So the Sphinx is allegedly a canine, right? The jackal.
Yeah.
So did it get defaced by one of
yeah.
these other races that came in after, like the reptiles, maybe?
I mean, I believe so. He may have told me something about the Sphinx, but he was just telling me so much stuff. It was difficult to remember. It was like one fastball after another he was throwing at me. So to remember everything was difficult. Like, I don't know exactly what the Sphinx was for, but yeah, I remember when he told me, just being in the hospital with my mom, and it's almost like trauma that kind of triggers this stuff. You know what I mean? It was something I pushed in the back of my mind. I refused to remember until like that moment where I saw that Paul Rubin died, and then boom, it all came back. And I knew my mom was going to die in 3 days, and all this other stuff came back to me about Sobek and the canines and the felines and and everything else.
Right. Well, allegedly underneath the Sphinx is the Akashic records or the Emerald tablets. And maybe that the representation of the jackal guarding the Akashic records, maybe that was the iconology that they were, trying to establish for their race or other races that would know what they're looking at. And of course, we as humans, we're still lost.
Yeah. He also told me that Caesar, before he burned down the Library of Alexandria, he said he took everything out, all the scrolls and tablets and records and everything else, and it's all in the catacombs of the Vatican. And he said, and he said like history's a lie, where the Atlanteans are our ancestors. Just everything you're told, science, medicine, it's all satanic is how they put it. In the sense of what is Satanism, it's inverted. Everything is upside down. History is upside down. The good guys are the bad guys are the good guys. Like everything you were told. The point of World War I and World War II was to blow up the last of the I always forget them. What are they called? The civilization. The Tartarians.
Okay.
He said it was to blow up the last evidence of like Tartarian architecture. That was the point. That and to lower the population of Europe as well. And and he said that eventually all this would be brought to our attention. He said that, where do you think the world's gold's at? And I just assumed like the Bank of England, the Bank of London. And he said it's in the catacombs of the Vatican. And he said, I think he said it was a septillion, enough to make everybody on Earth 100 millionaire, is how he put it. And I said, well, everybody become 100 millionaire? And he said, no, nobody will work. And he's like, but everybody's going to get a certain amount of money just for being here, just for being born on Earth, because it's such a wealth, like a rich world itself. And we won't ever have to worry about money again. Money will work for us. We won't work for money, like all this Babylonian slave debt nonsense. Usury will be outlawed. All these different things will be outlawed. Yeah. So, and it's just, he told me all these things, and just that history is a complete lie, and even our mathematics, even our science, everything is just like it's not true. It's not the way it should be, and it's because we're ruled by Satanists. And, in Satanism, everything is upside down. Everything is inverted. And, to cause chaos and everything else. And he told me that Aquino started the whole, what was that book called that he wrote? Mind War. And Mind War didn't come out, till later. It wasn't published till later. But he had it as an official, military document in 1980. But it was just a top secret military document. And when he wrote that document in 1980, he also brought out the flat Earth thing. And I asked what the Earth was, and he said it was a toroidal. And I remember seeing it from a ship, and it's almost like the magnetic field kind of comes out and goes back into the Earth, and it almost kind of flexes the oceans, the water. So it's almost like a donut and like a blood cell kind of combined together. So it's roundish, but it's not completely spherical, but it's not flat either. And he told me that Aquino started that whole thing just to cause chaos, because that's what Satanists do. He said it's just so you don't know what to believe. He's like, they want the people not to know what to believe, so they don't ever fight back. You can never get a proper footing of what reality is when you're ruled by these Satanists, is how he put it.
A lot of places I want to go with that. So let me just go here real quickly. Obviously, you're born and you've got a programmed, institutionalized public education. Now you went into the service and you got acclimated to all this other information. How has that affected you in the current present regarding how you are going to live your future?
I mean, I don't know, man. One day at a time. It's just like, I try not to let it, just swallow me. But yeah, I mean, it's just completely nonsensical. And I mean, even as a kid in high school, I remember asking like my history teacher, why don't I learn anything? And he didn't know how to answer that. And I said, well, it's not that I'm not capable of learning, but why don't I learn anything? Like, why don't I know what the Constitution is and what my rights are whenever like a police officer pulls me over? Like, why aren't I taught this in American history? Why aren't I taught, when I'm in economics, how to start my own business instead of just doing like watching movies and silly things like betting on the stock market? Why aren't I told like what grants are available to me to be able to start my own business? Like, why aren't I taught how to be self-sufficient? Like, that's what I always thought like high school would be about when I went into high school, like how to be self-sufficient, like a grown-up. Like, why aren't I taught any of these things? And nobody knows how to answer it because it's just nonsense. Like, everything in school it's nonsense. It's garbage. Yeah, and it is. It's just, and you learn a lot more just living life than you do ever at school. And school doesn't condition you for anything. And that was a harsh reality I had to learn young. Yeah.
Yeah, school,
And
the public institutions, they institutionalize you for prison. That's what they do. They want to get you into the workforce.
And when I told them in the office about this DARE program thing, and I remember they actually had like a machine that pulled a joint, like a marijuana joint, like it stuck it into a machine and like smoke came out into the classroom, and we're like 9 years old. And so the police wanted us to know they said they wanted us to know what marijuana smelled like. So like if we ever smelled it, to stay away from it. And I said it seemed like this DARE program was just trying to get you to do drugs, so you'd go to prison. And he said that's exactly what it was for. Yeah, he told me, he's like, yeah, that's exactly what it was all for, like all of it. Yeah, and I mean, something else was on the tip of my tongue. I don't remember now, but yeah, it was he just told me so much stuff. I'm writing a book, and I'll go more into depth about what he told me, pretty much everything he told me. But you're exactly right. Yeah, that all these systems are just to start like a prison planet, like the corporatized prisons and everything like that. It's all just to like milk money out of you until you die. Like that's all it's for. Milk your labor, milk the money until you're dead. Oh, and something else I was told. I remember he said all this stuff, and I said, if he can do this, if he has looking glass, whatever that may be, which I really didn't know at the time, or if he could look down timelines, if he's like a demigod or whatever the hell I thought he was at the time, I was just like amazed all the stuff the details he told me about my family, about my parents, all these details he told me about. And I said, is Christ real? And he said, yes, and his name holds power. And he said when people get high enough clearance for looking glass technology, whether they're Satanist or not, the first thing they ask to see 9 times out of 10 is Christ. And he said, even the Satanist. And I asked why, and he said they want to know he's real. But he said nobody's allowed to step through the looking glass at that period of time. Nobody can alter that timeline. And he said even the Satanists know better than that. And yeah, that was just something else that he told me. Yeah, that Christ was real. His name holds power. Yeah. And underground bases, you're not allowed to say Jesus Christ even in anger, even if you stub your toe. It's like affects the reptiles, and I saw it firsthand do it to Sobek. He seemed compelled. He was torturing me, and I just said out of like desperation, I said, "What in the name of Christ do you want?" And it said, "Stop it! Stop saying that!" Like it really bugged it. So I thought about it. I put 2 and 2 together, and I said, "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to undo my straps and let me go," because I was on a torture rack. And he started doing it. But that goon, that Satanist, that was like his little first-hand man, is like his helper. He kind of got wise to it, and it started talking to him, like stop him from doing this. And I said, in the name of Yeshua, I command you to stop talking to him. And he stopped talking, but then the goon got wise to it and cocked back and knocked me out. And I was horribly punished for that. But yeah, that's like a thing in underground bases. You're not allowed to say Jesus Christ, not even if you like stub your toe or anything.
So let's back up from our audience a little bit, because we've been going for 2.5 hours and they may not have caught the part where you keep describing he told me. Who is he?
This is Robert. This is my executive officer. He was second in command of, at the time, of JMF RAF St. Mawgan, which was Joint Maritime Force for the U.S. Navy and Royal Air Force. It was like a joint task force base.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was the second in command. Well, he told me also that he was from the year 2580, that he had to go back in time to alter the timeline. He said, when he was looking at my timeline, he said, "You think I look like Mike Pence? You're right." And I said, "Who's Mike Pence?" And he said, "He becomes vice president for Trump." And I said, "Trump?" I said, the billionaire? And he goes, "Yeah." And then he explained to me that, he said that if you look at Mike Pence, if you look at his wife, if you look at his kids, they all have black hair like me. And he explained to me that, he looked like a spitting image of him now that I think about it. He had white hair. He said that their hair begins to salt and pepper at 50. It turns pure white by 60. They usually have brown eyes. Sometimes they have blue or green. Their eyebrows turn white at 70, and their average life expectancy is 110. And I said, "That's awful." I said, "In Star Trek, they lived to 120. And he said, "We didn't reach our true potential." And he said the off-world Germans live over 800 years, and that's how long we should live. We should live over 800 years. But because they poison our air and our food and hit us with all these frequencies and everything like that, everything is like meant to make us age, prematurely. And it's because that the reptiles and the negative forces that rule our world are afraid of our true potential. Like they never want us to see our true potential. That's why we die around in our 70s. But yeah. And he said that how it happened was his original timeline was after Hillary Clinton won the election. He said on the second term, we got into a war with China that was intended to be lost. He said because of the Second Amendment, China didn't want to try to invade the United States. Too many people are armed. It would take too long. And so we got carpet bombed by nuclear weapons. And then after that happened, there were like forced breeding programs. And they bred everybody together for like 100 years. They went in 100-year intervals. And then he said they took the lighter skinned people and put them in Asia, and they bred them together for 100 years. And then for 100 years, they, were finally one people, and they were all at peace with each other. And then they realized they made a mistake. And then that's where the mission of the Anglo-Saxon comes in. He explained the mission of the Anglo-Saxon to me. And he said that we originally came from Tiamat, Maldek, the asteroid belt. That was a world. And Caucasians lived there, like what we call Caucasians, and he called them the Anglo-Saxons. And he said that due to internal fighting and the reptiles, that world was blown up. Mars was destroyed by the debris of this world, so we came to Earth. He said that the sub-Saharan African and the Aboriginals are the only two that are native to Earth, the native people of Earth. And he said that the Russians, the Slavic people, are slightly more spiritually advanced than the Anglo-Saxon. He said that the Anglo-Saxon interbred with the Neanderthal. He said, "You feel that bump on the back of your head?" I said, "Yeah, I know exactly what he meant." He said, "That's a Neanderthal trait." He said, "Only people with Neanderthal DNA have that. Most Slavic people don't have that." And he said that because the Neanderthal was a native inhabitant of Earth, it gave us a direct connection to the Earth. So even though the Slavic people are slightly more spiritually advanced than us, because we have a direct connection to the Earth, like if we die out, the world will not go beyond fifth density. And if a world becomes stagnant, spiritually stagnant, and it can't evolve any further, it dies. And I asked how the world died on his timeline with the Mike Pence people, and he said, rivers dry up, oceans dry up, crops die, the world just dies. And it's because a world has to keep evolving. And he said the reason why our ancestors enslaved the Slavs so much, because Slav is Old Norse for slave. And he said the reason they fought them and enslaved them so much is because they wanted to interbreed with them, because they knew that they were the only other people that were more spiritually advanced than us. And he said that's why, like, the Slavic people were treated so cruelly and roughly by our ancestors, like the Vikings and stuff like that, was because they wanted to interbreed with them, and they were jealous of them, is how he put it. And he said, and he went on about, and he told me, he kept on telling me all these things, like what's happening now, where people will be taken out of their house and they'll be sent back home and they'll be happier in their home world. And I was like, you can't do that. You can't, or their home country, their homeland. I said, you can't do that to people. You can't do these things to people. And every time I said that, he would just say, we must ensure the survival of the Anglo-Saxon. The Anglo-Saxon is the true potential of Earth. Without the Anglo-Saxon, we will not go beyond fifth density. Without the Anglo-Saxon, we will not reach our true potential. And that was like something that he was almost like samurai, like in his mission. Like as a mission, he said he was genetically engineered in the womb for this mission. It was, it meant more than anything to him. And I said, well, was your mission successful? And he said, yes. And he said they've gone back through the timeline. They've gone using looking glass and things like that. He said they actually put looking glass in bombers, and they fly them over certain areas, and they open up the bomb bay doors so they can observe like different nations being built in the future. And he said it's 94% accurate with a 4% second outcome and a 2% variable, is how he put it. But he said if you fly the looking glass directly over a target, it becomes closer to 100%. It becomes almost 100%. So if you look directly over a target to see if new countries, new nations are going to be built, he said you could see it with like a 99% accuracy. So that's why they put them in these bomb doors and Bombay doors. And I said, was your mission successful? And he said, yes. And I said, well, what about your mom and dad? And he said, my mother's gone, my father's gone, my brothers and sisters are gone, all my friends are gone. And I said, well, why are you still here? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, is your wife from that time? And he said, no. And he like kind of smiled. And I said, well, what happened to your daughter? Because he had a daughter, and he looked like almost he was going to cry. And he said, I don't know. Like, he didn't know why he still existed, even though his parents were never there. Like that timeline, he said, was completely collapsed, and a new one was made. And it was something about Kruger, where it was like there's 8 different worlds, he said, we know of, or 8 different universes. I'm sorry, 8 different universes we know of. It's not like he didn't explain it like it was a multiverse with all these unlimited timelines and everything like that. He said, yes, we do kind of like branch off into different timelines, but then we converge. We have convergence points and major events on Earth and things like that, where everything comes back together. And wow. Yeah, he said that like Kruger was like a corporation from an alternate Germany that won World War II, where they developed this technology to go to different universes. And we don't have that technology. Not even ninth density beings have that technology. But this corporation working with Nordics and things like that and other ETs, they developed the technology to where they can go into different universes. And he said that the main plan is to get everybody on the same sheet of music so we can attack the AI, because the AI is in like a separate universe, and the AI is like a hive consciousness that the reptiles allowed into themselves because they kind of have a might makes right kind of attitude, and they saw the AI as like superior to them, so they kind of bowed to it and let themselves be injected with the AI. And the main goal is to try to get all the worlds together to try to eventually combat this AI that's in like a separate universe that we can't really get to. And that's why it's so difficult to fight, because it's artificial intelligence. And I don't think it's like Chat GPT artificial intelligence. I think this is something a lot more major. But yeah, a lot. And yeah, so he told me all this stuff, and it was not what I thought it was going to be as far as what he told me about the duality of the Earth and everything else. But with the National Guard being everywhere, as he said right now, and it seems like it's happening. I don't know. And yeah.
Did he give you a timeline on when the Guard hits the streets to when we're supposed to get to whatever point?
I'm sorry. Everything just stopped. Like, can you repeat the question?
Welcome to StreamYard. Did he
Yeah.
give you a timeline from when the National Guard hits the streets of America to when we're supposed to get to wherever we need to be?
He said no. He said that you know it's starting then, but he said it can't be stopped. He said it can be slowed down, but it can't be stopped because as far as they see with this looking glass technology, it's already happening. You know, everything is already happening as far as they're concerned.
So this is in motion and it
So
can't
yeah,
be
it can be
stopped.
slowed down.
It's going to have to go to total fulfillment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Wow. That's pretty terrifying. Let me get, because you just brought up AI, and so far you haven't spoken about AI until just now. I prefaced the majority of the first hour on AI and robotics. And it's my opinion, this is my own opinion, that artificial intelligence is the new world order. It's one world religion, one government, one currency, and it's the all-seeing capital I, not AI as on top of the pyramid. That's my own personal opinion of it. I think the genie's out of the bottle. I think artificial intelligence, what people assume is artificial intelligence, is just like what you described, ChatGPT, Grok, all these free AIs that people interface with on a daily basis. But there's, if not thousands, probably millions of different AI technologies out in this, in the realm. Where do you see us going with AI, where that's going, or even what Robert told you?
Well, I know like positive ETs don't allow it in their systems. They do have like a tech and things like that, and it's not as advanced as AI tech. They have a tech to help heal their bodies, help make them stronger, faster, smarter, things like that. So they do leave like a technology in their body that aids them. But like the positive ETs don't allow AI into their children and things like that. And he said one of the things he brought up that they're going to use an AI for voting. Basically, most of the politicians are going to be let go. We're just going to have like a group, like a 4 or 5 elected officials. They're going to monitor this AI. And I said, well, you just told me the AI wasn't good. And he said it's going to be confined. It's not going to be allowed into any kind of internet or anything like that. And what it's going to be used for is for voting, to make sure every vote counts, to make sure there's no such thing. There won't be any kind of corruption in our voting. This AI is going to make sure it's every vote is real. So there's not going to be any voter fraud or anything like that. And that's going to be one of the main AI devices he said we're going to use. But because it's going to be just confined to itself, and there's going to be like a group of people making sure it's working properly in the way it should. And it sounded almost like a priest class. He kind of explained to me, like there's going to be like these people that are just going to be, their entire job is to make sure this AI is working correctly. And if anything doesn't happen properly, it'll be shut down and rebuilt. But yeah, it won't be allowed into like, the World Wide Web or anything like that. It'll just be confined to itself, and its primary mission and focus will be to make sure every vote counts. And we're going to be voting, more like Netherlands or Denmark. We're going to be voting for pretty much everything. We're going to be called to vote for almost any choice or decision or anything like that in the United States, or around the world, I should say, for that matter. And we'll have different nations and things like that, but we'll have like, I wouldn't call it a one world order, but just like a world that is trying to get into the game is kind of like how he explained it. With the game being up there, we're going to have to start pulling our own weight, because we do have positive ETs as far as I remember my own memories, and as far as what he told me that are helping us out, but we're going to have to like contribute to this.
Wow. I sure wish one of them would contact me. Good or bad.
Yeah.
I'll take either. So what do you think? I actually, I don't know if you said you don't watch a lot of other people or other shows. NVIDIA, Jensen Huang did a presentation yesterday and introduced a lot of new technologies that can use. During this show, I peeked over to my email, and with Trump's favor, NVIDIA becomes the first $5 trillion company in history. And most people don't realize the power and authority of NVIDIA, because all the quantum computers, all the supercomputers, all run with NVIDIA chips with their Blackwell technology. Are you familiar with that? So
I mean, I've heard about this trading with NVIDIA, yeah.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
No. I've heard about the whole NVIDIA thing, but I'm not familiar with the chip.
Okay. They are the leader. They're America first, thank God, and not China. And they actually are prevented from selling their top line chips to China. So China's trying to develop their own chip to match NVIDIA's Blackwell super chip. They're one of the most valuable companies. This is what I personally see happening through my own research, is that all of these, and I call them megalomaniac billionaires, because they all have one goal, and that's to become the superior AI. Because it's my opinion, whoever has the alpha AI will become a demigod. They'll become the wealthiest person in the world, the most authoritative, with the most control. However, I don't see one person or one entity being able to do that solo. I see all these big companies having to merge into one homogenous entity to make this work, to where they'll all become, and I see that 9 of the top 10 wealthiest people in the world being able to accumulate this. Because if you take the top 3, and that's Elon, Larry Ellison, and Mark Zuckerberg, they have a combined net worth of $1 trillion. And that's, that's obviously probably greater than half the world's countries' GDPs, correct? Some reason we're not picking up your audio.
Oh yes. Like that's what it needs to be. Sort of like something that needs to be stopped. But you can use the audio went out.
Start over. Yeah, there you go. The first part of your statement was.
Yeah, I mean AI. Yeah, AI is like the main thing that just positive ETs are fighting as well, because they can be captured by like negative beings, and they get AI put in them, and they become almost like slaves. When you go into like the Dark Fleet, like this off-world German society, it's kind of like a mercenary group for reptiles. They put AI in you, and you really don't have your own self anymore. You become part of a hive mind, and that's kind of like what that's like. I would say, in my own opinion, the AI just on a just universal level itself. But you also brought up about how there's just going to be like somebody worth like $5 trillion or something like that. That's another thing with the money system. Say again. 15.
NVIDIA was just valued. Like,
yeah. That's yeah. 15. Yeah, I mean, and that wage, that disparity gap of wealthy, billionaires won't be there will be like no more billionaires, and the economy will become more like the 50s, where you might have a couple millionaires, but the disparity won't be as vast as it is right now, where you won't have trillionaires, you won't have billionaires anymore, and that in itself will be kind of controlled and handled. So because you can't have that, as you said, that's ridiculous. But 15 trillion.
It's 5 trillion, but
I agree.
I covered this in the first hour of this show.
5 trillion. Okay, I thought that's what you said.
Yeah.
You were breaking.
Yeah, I know it's StreamYard. I don't know what the deal is with them. I already closed it out. Elon Musk has a compensation package from Tesla that they're going to give him $1 trillion worth of shares for a compensation package above and beyond the whatever he's worth today, where how 300 something billion, 500 billion, whatever. That's insane.
And something I heard about Elon, what Candace Owen brought it up. I was surprised about that. She was like saying they're aliens, they're hybrids, and she was showing pictures of reptiles. And I wonder if like this, is going to come to the surface if more mainstream people like her are beginning to openly talk about these things and things like that, saying that the certain people, they don't even seem human. They seem like they're like a hybrid of something else. And she was showing images of like reptiles. Like she didn't say it, but she was, showing you images of it and everything like that.
Right. Yeah. She's coming out scorched earth, but anybody who can get 300,000 views in 10 minutes, they've got a platform for sure. Yeah. When it comes to Elon Musk, I've seen videos of him where he can't stop stuttering and he's got all these pauses and uhs and, and then other times you hear him speak and he's just seamless. He never stops, never stutters, doesn't have what, none of that. So obviously there's two Elons or multiple Elons, or Elon, as Candace has alluded to, is a hybrid. I think we have a lot of those within our midst that we just don't know about.
And And that's something else that Robert told me too. He said like clone technology is much more advanced than you understand. Mass technology is a lot more advanced than you understand. And he was like saying things that I would hear later, and it was like an inside joke. He knew I would get it. He would say things like, enjoy the show and get your popcorn. And he said that the Q thing was real at first. He said, but then it would go away for 4 or 5 months. And then that wouldn't be true. But it doesn't matter because it's already started by then. But he said, yeah, when it first came out, it was real. And then it would go away. And then the rest of the stuff he said wasn't true of the Q stuff. But at first, it was just like a conglomeration of like officers, enlisted, people in the military. And, when I asked him, I said, why are there people like this? Like he said the main goal of the Satanists is to nuke the earth and live in the underground bases. And that's like their goal. Whether they use it through AI or anything else, they just want to kill all life on Earth. They get to live in the underground bases within the Earth. And that's their life. And I said, why are there people like this? Like, I couldn't grasp this. Like, why are there people like this? And he said, because their parents raped them their entire childhood. And they hate everybody and everything. They hate life. And they just want to see it destroyed. And it's just as simple as that. And yeah, it was like that's just how he leveled it to me. It was just like there's people like this. There's people, that just they want to see everything die. They want to see the world die. They don't care.
Now let me ask you this, because you don't know this. Some of my audience doesn't know it either. I actually lived with one of the most prolific serial killers in the state of Texas, David Owen Brooks, and having lived with him, 18, almost 50 years ago, I kind of gathered that for some unknown reason that, and this is my opinion again, my own theory, of having lived here 63 years, that there are people being born on Earth or whatever, this realm we're in, that are soulless people, that there's not enough souls to go around to inhabit the bodies. That the reason we have this is we are overpopulated, and that's why they want to reduce the population. That's the elite's goals. So did Robert tell you anything about this, or do you have any information on that?
He did. He said that people, there are what people call now NPCs and things like that. He said you have to have like a consciousness. They call it consciousness, like in the program, a soul, and to join these programs, because that's like you have to have it. Because he told me when he was talking to me, he said you died the third day you're on Mars, and I said, well, how did I die? He didn't know, and he said I was a clone. And I kind of had like a panic attack, I was like, well, what's the point of living? And like, if I'm a clone, then what's the point of any of this? And he said, Daryl, they were able to salvage your consciousness. And I said, what's a consciousness? And he said, your soul, if that makes you feel better, the part that makes you, you. And then he kind of explained to me that anytime you go through a portal or a looking glass or anything, it's like your body ceases to exist. Only your soul passes through. And then when you get to the other end, your body comes back. And I asked how that happened. He said, I don't know. He didn't know like how it actually happened. But he said, like, every time you go through a portal, it's almost like you die and then you come back. It's kind of like what it's like. And ETs have to go into a med bed when they're active duty, like about once a week, to kind of realign their DNA, because every time you walk through a portal, it kind of alters your DNA a little bit, and it has to realign your DNA. And that was something else that later on, when I came back from the Navy, he told me about this. Oh, something happened. Can you still hear me? Okay. He said that like a Kino would try to attack you one last time, but it's not successful. And what happened was, when I got out of the military, I was drinking a lot and things like that. And I came to this woman's house. Like, she was waving at me. She said, come inside, come inside. And I went inside. And I was very drunk, and I kind of just said, like, hey, do you mind if I, like, lay down on the floor for a moment, take a nap? She's like, oh, no, go ahead. And there was not a lot of lighting in this. And this had happened here in St. Pete, like on the south side. And I heard, like, this voice say, like, I'm scared. It kind of sounded like that. And I heard the woman say, oh, it's all right. It's all right. And I felt something cold on my face. And then all of a sudden I felt like something was like in my eye, like in my eye. So I went to grab it, and it was something cold and wet. And I started pulling it out, and it felt like I was going to pull my own eye out. And I remember I heard a voice in my head, and this was a Nordic I knew. He was the navigator of the ship I was on. I don't remember his name, but he had such a strong telepathic link with me. He knew I was in danger. And I remember on the ship, he was kind of looking down like, get it out, get it out. And I said, what are you doing? He said, be quiet. And then he said, get it out. But when I was back here in Florida, I tried pulling it out, and I heard a voice in my head say, get it out, pull it out. And I said, but I'm going to pull my eye out. He said, pull your eye out, just get it out. So I just, with all my might, I started pushing, and these women jumped on top of me to hold me down. So I eventually got it out, and it was like smacking around in my hand like a wet worm, and I threw it down the hallway, and I started yelling at these women, and they like sat back down on their couch, and it was very dark. I could only the kitchen light was on, none of the living room lights were on, so all I could kind of see was like their outline. And I looked down at this coffee table, and there was like this small little puppet sitting on the coffee table, and I looked down closer and closer, and it was a reptile, and it had like eye stalks, like eyes above its head, and it had like these two pinchers instead of hands. And there's another person who talks about this. I can't think of his name offhand, but he talks about the underground bases and how the elites rule it. And they call this thing a vril lizard. And what it does is it goes into your eye and it takes your consciousness, kills the body, and it pushes like its spinal fluid into the brain, and its consciousness becomes the body's consciousness. And I think he says the people only live like 7 or 8 years. They call them drones. Robert told me that too. The ET I saw that took the computer apart, they call that a drone. They call the small reptiles drone lizards. And they call the people that it's happened to, they call those drones. And they become like psychopaths after that because they're only a reptilian brain. And he told me that most of these serial killers and stuff like that, these are people that have been droned. Like when I was in the underground base with Aquino, the reptile Soviet, I said something like, when he was torturing me, I yelled something out like, you guys are like the, what was his name? The really popular cannibal serial killer. I can't think of his name offhand. Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Jeffrey Dahmer. Yeah, I said you guys are the Jeffrey Dahmer family, and he goes, Jeffrey Dahmer. The reptile said this. He said, Jeffrey Dahmer. I'll show you what happened to Jeffrey Dahmer. And he pulled out one of these small lizards. He told the one reptile to go back in the back, and he grabbed one of these lizards, and he put it around my face, close to my eye, and he's like, no, I'm not going to do that to you. But yeah, like he was in the army. He said he met Jeffrey Dahmer. I guess he was droned. And a lot of these serial killers and things like that, and these people that are like that, they've been droned. And yeah, they become complete psychopaths. And they usually become cannibals and like murderers and things like that. And he said like it's not human nature to be that way. If you were raised by somewhat decent parents that did their best, parents are only human. What can you say? But people aren't like that. They just are. And he explained that to me that the nature of human beings is like, they try to be good. You try to help each other. And these people that are serial killers and all this stuff, these are people 9 times out of 10 that have been droned and that their consciousness is gone and they only have this reptilian consciousness living in their body.
Can they be replaced back with a conscious? Do you know?
No, the body dies. The soul leaves if they ever had a consciousness to begin with. It leaves. Like the body, they say it's like a long period, weeks. It takes like a couple weeks where somebody has to feed them, somebody has to like take care of them. And he also, I forget what this guy's name was. Can't remember it right now. He's pretty popular, but he talks about the underground bases and the bro lizards. He said that they have polka dots on their mailboxes to tell each other apart. They'll have white mailboxes and they'll paint different colored polka dots on their mailboxes so they can, you're in good company. Like if you've been droned, like one of these drone lizards, so they could tell each other apart. And this woman in front of her house had polka dots on her white mailbox. She had the polka dots and everything when I saw this. And then Robert told me that it was like the last attempt that like Aquino did because with these reptiles, they live in the astral plane. Time is an illusion. They can go up and down your timeline, do different things. They can alter your timeline when they're very old. And this thing was like 5,000 years old, and they're good at altering timelines and manipulating timelines if they're in your presence. And that's something else is like you don't even know because he said that the only reason I could see him is because he showed himself to me. And, because he lives in this astral plane. And that's what goes back to the whole Babylonian Baal worship and stuff like that, where they used to burn babies alive. It was to get their attention because we produce something called loosh, and children produce like the most of it, pain and suffering. They call it loosh, and it gets their attention and will show themselves to you. That's why there's like involved in Satanism. That's why there's sacrifice and stuff like that. Like Aleister Crowley said that the highest form of a sacrifice is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, prepubescent boy of high intelligence and things like that. These Satanists do this stuff. It's not just like a story. And it gets these reptiles, what we call demons or something like, whatever you want to call it, it gets their attention and they'll show themselves. And they can tell you things and they'll do things for you as long as you give them this drug that they enjoy, the pain, the suffering, this loosh. As long as you're loyal to them, yeah. And that's kind of like how that Satanism stuff works.
Daryl, thank you. I mean, this has been a fascinating show. I'm just blown away. A lot of it, I already knew. Some reason I've instinctively known some of this stuff. I don't know why. I don't know where it came from. Definitely wasn't in public school because I dropped out in 4th grade. Didn't see any use for school. I was so far behind. But wow. Jesus. Like Robert did to you, you've given us information overload, and you've given us a lot to digest. Some people are definitely going to go back and rewatch this video. I am included in that. I definitely want to have you back on. I don't want to make this, an extremely long video because we're, asking people to spend 3 hours of their life with us to get this information. I want to get you scheduled to come back on. I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to keep this digestible for people. I want them to watch this. People need to know what's really going on. That's all I'm looking for is the truth, whatever that looks like. If it's detrimental to my own livelihood, it is what it is. At least now I know,
And I'm the same way too. Yeah, like I'm doing this because I saw these kids in these underground caverns, and this is a thing. This is real. Like, he said to me, why do you think, movie stars stay perpetually 35 years old until they get to their 60s? He said, you think it's just plastic surgery? He said, they're doing this adrenochrome. They're injecting it, they drink it, and they know where it comes from. So they're just as guilty as murder, as child murder. So, and he said these people would be put to justice. And that's why I'm talking about it. It's like, I want people to be aware of this. I signed 3 non-disclosure agreements when I first arrived to this base and there were lifetimes. I've never heard of a lifetime non-disclosure agreement where you can never talk about anything for the rest of your life. You'll get 10 years in prison or $100,000 a fine. Yeah, that's why I'm doing it. I mean, whatever I signed, I don't care. This people have to know that this is real and that these things are real, and you don't necessarily have to look up into the sky if you want to know about ETs. They're living right below us. A lot of them.
Or with us or next door to us, or we're working with them.
Yeah. Exactly. And if you want to get into the spirit realm and everything like that, you don't know. You don't know.
Right. Wow.
And yeah. And Christ was real and his name holds power. Yeah. You can if you get a bad feeling or anything like that, just say in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave, and just say that. And they have to listen. It's like, I don't know what it is. I can't explain it. It's like part of the deal with the universe or something like that. I can't explain it, but that's just the way it is.
That's their kryptonite.
It is. And I saw it firsthand and it worked. Yeah.
Yeah. When I tell people about the deep underground military bases where it's a breeding program for the AC, absolutely. People just, whatever, Floyd, you're crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist, all that stuff. And I've been telling them over and over and over that, these deep underground military bases are everywhere. They're under places that you would not suspect. I was once told in prison by a melanated offender, a black guy who was from Austin, Texas, who told me he was abducted by aliens. He was shown everything, and that they took him to these different buildings in Austin. Like, you could be walking downtown Austin, and on the side of this building, there would be a door with a high security lock on it. And when you went into that door, it didn't take you into the building. It took you to a deep underground military installation. And I was like, and this was back in the early 2000s. I was like, okay. I know they exist, but now you're telling me that you can just like walk off the streets in Austin, Texas and walk into a deep underground military base, or you can go into a grocery store, and at the very back of the grocery store, they'll have this door that nobody enters, and it'll have some kind of keypad lock on it. That takes you to a deep underground military base, or takes you to a tunnel that takes you somewhere else. And I was like, okay, that's a crazy story, but I believe you believe it. And I didn't think it was a reality. And from basically what you're saying, it's definitely a reality.
And with prisons and things like that, they get a lot of them. Robert told me that because, it was the whole, when they got rid of slavery, it was the chain gang law. It's like once you've been incarcerated, they have the right to enslave you. Like, that's written in. Like they replaced, slaves with prisoners, and that's how they got chain gangs. And that goes up to the secret space program. And a lot of people who are incarcerated, they could be taken into these programs, because they can do whatever they want with you once you're in prison. They could be taken into these programs while in prison, because there's something about contracts. There's something about deals. There's something about, Robert even said that to me. I said, like, why do you do this? Why do you deal with these people, these beings, that they're evil? And he said, like, we have a contract, and the contract is we have to give them so many warm bodies, so many people every every year, and in exchange we get ET tech in exchange for that, and that's like part of the deal. We have to voluntarily enslave our own people, and then in exchange they give us ET technology in exchange for so many people every year, and they have contracts they have to fulfill with these beings, and contracts are very big with these beings and things like that.
Right. Wow. So many places I want to go with that, just one statement. But I'll carry us on. You may not know this. The Texas prison system was built on plantations, slave plantations. Mm-hmm. The majority of them, the big ones, we call them the old red brick prison units that were built in the 1880s and 1930s, but they were built on former plantations. So all they did is just take the slaves and re-inhabit them with a prison sentence. Absolutely. Wow.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
What a story. I can't wait. When's your, how far along are you on your autobiography?
Well, I'm wrapping up the first book. I'd like to bring 2, maybe 3 out, but I'm wrapping up. Like, it's just I'm in the Robert part, and he told me so much. I didn't scratch the surface as far as like everything he told me. I'm working with someone else. She's helping me type it. I dictate. It's and then I could just kind of like boom, 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 tell me all these things. And I mean, we have this pages and pages about just what he told me himself. But yeah, it's just the whole editing thing, going back, making sure everything connects properly and stuff. We have to reread it, and then hire an editor. I don't want to do editing through AI. I want to hire an actual real editor. Yeah.
Do not use AI.
Yeah. Everybody seems to be using AI now. Yeah. To edit their books. Yeah.
I just went through ChatGPT 5, a paid subscription for about a month and a half doing legal work because I'm challenging my conviction, my 60-year sentence. I challenged it back in 2006. They sat on my brief for 2.5 years. Finally, in 2010, they eventually sent it up to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. It was remanded for an evidentiary hearing to find facts, conclude law, and ineffective assistance of counsel. My judge refused to do it. So here I am some 15 years later, and now I'm redoing it, resubmitting it. And I thought I was going to be able to take a shortcut and go back to my original brief and copy and paste. And yesterday I made the final decision. I'm just going to start over from scratch. And I had to go print out the case in chief, and just to give you an idea, this is just a case in chief. This is the testimony of the defense and state witnesses in the opening statements. Doesn't have punishment or anything like that. That's my brief that I filed. So you can see the difference. They're almost the same size. So yeah, I was very hard at work on that. So I have all these things that I'm putting together for that. That's what I've been working on. But I use ChatGPT as an organizational tool, trying to develop it. And it got to where after I was in like 5 weeks into it, the names of the parties always stay the same, but it started making up different names for these parties. I was like, what are you doing? Now, we're so deep into this that I can't trust anything that you've told me for the last 2 weeks, because now you're lying to me. You're creating fictitious people. And I went round and round and round and round, tried to get it straightened back up, and eventually unsubscribed to ChatGPT. And just the only thing I'll use it for is just like to renumber stuff, just very basic, simple stuff that would take me hours to do. But as far as deep thinking, anything like that, no, I'm off AI. Last thing I want to ask you about. AI clearly is coming to take over, and it's my opinion that every child born from 2020 on will be an all digital being, which means they're not going to know how to cook because we'll have 3D printers, and not know how to drive because we'll have automated vehicles that'll take them wherever they want to go. They'll either be able to talk to a device or just think it and it'll happen. Where do you think we're going with that?
Well, I mean, we are. I mean, there is going to be. I wouldn't say. He explained to me that there is going to be AI, but it's going to be confined. It's not going to be allowed to travel, so it can infect other computers, infect the World Wide Web, and things like that. All the AI that we're going to have, he said, advanced AI. That will be more like, just confined to itself. But I mean, there's always the human touch. I mean, in my opinion, it's just like, what if they do have all this technology and stuff like that? Why do they need so many people in this program? Is it just for their consciousness, or is it because like we matter, we can make a difference, and we're above AI on some sort of a level? I mean, if AI could just be on its own, then why doesn't it just wipe everything out right now within the universe? It seems capable of it, but it won't do it. And in my opinion, it's just our true potential. If we ever get there, if we ever do get to live over 800 years, as we should, as I was told we should, our true potential is going to be something I don't think the universe has ever seen. And yeah, you always need that human touch, and AI can't do it. Not like us, in my opinion.
Yeah, we do have empathy and sympathy and human emotions. Mm-hmm. Most of us, anyway.
Well, yeah.
When can I
There's
get
always
you back? Yeah, when can I get you back on the show? Because Project Looking Glass, that's a whole show in of itself, and I look forward to that.
Yeah. Plus, I was in the dark. I asked him, I said, I wanted a timeline. I said, he said I was 3 months in the mines of the moon, 2 years in the Dark Fleet, and the rest of the time I was with them. I was in like a Solar Warden conglomeration with like these Nordics, these Pleiadian people. It's almost like a joint task force between Solar Warden, like the U.S. Navy, Earth itself, there's other militaries as well, like that have this. Russia has it. There's other other people. Japanese have it. So it's not the United States, but yeah. But as far as coming on, when, I mean, I can do it next week, the week after, whenever you like. I like taking a little time off. This is kind of like psychotherapy. Every time I do it, I'm bringing up old stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. And the reason I stay with StreamYard is because I can take this show and I can download the transcripts. I don't know if you know that with StreamYard. And then you can put it and edit it.
No, I didn't. Yeah.
One long string of text, and you have to go in and paragraph it and stuff like that. But that's available. Definitely, I am booked until the 10th, but I'd love to have you back in November. And anything after the 10th, just shoot me an email or call me or text and let me know what your availability is, and I'll get you scheduled. And I definitely want to have you back on. I'd like to bring you on with other super soldiers, so maybe when y'all do talk, they talk about their events, that maybe it'll trigger a repressed or suppressed memory. I know Noel Benoit, he's done that with his interactions with some of James Rink's guests. They've triggered his memory. So hopefully we can do that. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for your time, your energy, your information, your experience. God bless you. I don't know how many more of you are out there with this man. What a story. What a story. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Yeah. It's even, far beyond what Hollywood could create. Thank you very much. As I'd like to do with all my guests, I'll allow them to have the platform to do a closing statement. And
my closing statement would be what I said earlier, is just, it seems bad right now. And I was told it would get bad. It would get to a point where we didn't know what was happening. But he said, we stop it. We have the technology to stop it. And I would just say, where there's life, there's hope. you know, and don't lose hope. That's like you can never lose your hope. And my website is DarylDJames.com, DARYL, D is in Delta, James.com. And most of my videos are up there. Thank you.
You're more than welcome, sir. I put your link over in the comments to your website. It's in the description below. When I have James back on next time, I'll have the banner running with all his information on it so you can get in contact with him. Yes, it was a great show, Marcia. I'm titillated by everything, fascinated, and I can't wait to dive in next month with more after I watch this video and be able to write down some notes. So thank you, Daryl. Happy Halloween if you celebrate a paganistic satanic holiday. And I'll get in touch with you, and thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
I'll be right here. I'll be right here on Halloween. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. There you go, everybody. Daryl D. James, Super Soldier. Thank you, sir. And we'll see you next month.
All right. See you then.
All right, everybody. Daryl D. James. Wow. I'm just blown away. I really am. You know, it's one thing reading it in a book, watching a video on social media, you know, people, you know, telling their stories. But when you're actually talking to somebody face to face and they're telling you their story, it's a little bit different. And then when things that you know and you express to other people and they blow you off as some conspiracy theorist, and you have somebody that's been there face to face and seen this for themselves, and to substantiate everything that I've been telling people. It's a really horrific situation. And I tell everybody, if you think John Trump is going to come save your ass, you're sadly mistaken. I hate to say it. If you think your government, the United States of America, is going to come save you, you're sadly mistaken. This is all on we, the people. It's us. It's us to become the educated, okay? We need to go get that private education that the elites got because we were dumbed down, institutionalized, programmed by a public education. One that taught us what we don't need, or it was a lie or alternative history or education. So, like I said, I'm always searching for the truth. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what it sounds like. I just want to know. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to present is, you know, a wide variety of categories of issues that will educate you and show you that, hey, this is real. This is real reality, folks. This is what's really going on. You know, stay away from mainstream media. And I hate to say this, God bless them. And I showed this yesterday on my show, that even John Delaney, who was on Sean Ryan's show, called Sean Ryan out in front of his face. And Sean Ryan didn't even realize he was getting called out. Because all these big social media influencers, they have a narrative. They're getting paid. They have sponsors and advertisers. And obviously, they don't take every advertiser that comes. They're being selective. So while they're being selective with their advertisers, it's all about the paycheck. That's what it comes down to. They're going to continue with a narrative that follows their advertisers that pay for them to enjoy life, to make them wealthy. God, I wish I was part of that. I'm trying to find out where I can go get paid $7,000 per post to promote Israel. I'll be down for that. I could use $7,000. How about you? It'd probably pull everybody out of a hole just to do one post. And then you come back, follow it up with like, I was just kidding. Right? So everybody who came and joined the show, I lost most of your comments, having to recycle everything. T. Roy, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. There again, contracts can and do control most aspect of the physical and spiritual realm. Yeah, absolutely. These adhesion contracts. Thank you, Marcia. Came in very late. Yes, definitely go back and watch the beginning because the first hour is just me giving you a bunch of information about a whole variety of topics that seamlessly blended into the whole show. Very grateful for that. I do have my guest backstage, and I want to bring her on, introduce you two guys. I don't want to do another show because I'm like pressed for time. I'd rather do a separate show with her individually. So I'm going to bring on my guest, and she's been back there patiently waiting for well over an hour. So, and I just met her. We've never spoken, so this is very fresh. So here we go. And she asked me if she could come on with her face blurred, and I, of course, acquiesced because I don't want anybody's health and safety, even life, to be in jeopardy because they wanted to come on my show or wanted to express what they wanted to express, or I'll be a part of that. And I've told you folks, that's why I kind of got out of the whole private process thing. That's why I don't sell license plates anymore. Why I don't promote that, because if somebody got executed on the side of the road by a law enforcement officer for something that I participated in, no, I don't want that on my conscience. So that's how I roll. That's how I operate. Irene, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah. Thank you for having me here for just a little bit. But yeah, thank you for allowing me to blur my face. I actually declined another person just recently because of that. Because I actually, like a week ago, had to ask the Galactic Federation to help out James Rink, who got attacked. I don't want to talk about what happened to him. I want him to explain, but yeah, he's still not feeling well. So I'm kind of praying for him to Source. I'm not very religious, but I do believe in Source and God. So yeah, but yeah, I'm a little bit nervous.
Well, start by telling everybody who you are, what you're about, and I don't want to go in too far with you on this particular segment because I'm trying to keep it on, where people will watch it. Because the longer it is, the less people will watch it, the less they'll watch it to the end, and you're at the end. So I want people to see you. I want people to acknowledge your existence because I definitely want to come back and do a separate show with you. And we'll get into the whole James Rink on another show or another thing. So start off, I'm going to give you the floor. Tell everybody who you are, what your relationship is to the Secret Soldier program, and we'll get you back on.
So I've had 320 and backs. First, they started taking me when I was 3 years old. They first were just abducting me, and then at 6 years old, they took me for my first 20 and back. And then, which is actually interesting because that was the time when I moved from Russia to Bulgaria. Bulgaria is in Europe, it's a small country. And then at 13 years old, 12 or 13 years old, they took me for my second 20 and back, and around 2021. And it's interesting, at 12 years old, I actually moved from Bulgaria to America. So it's kind of interesting that it coincided with that. And then when I was around 2021, when I was 19 years old, I went to military medical school in Russia. And it turns out that during medical school around 2021, they took me to my third 20 and back, which was where I was used the most into the most extreme missions. And after that, I attacked one of my handlers and got rescued by the Galactic Federation, and they wiped my memory, regressed me, and took me back to Earth. Apparently, I agreed to it. I'm not going to talk about why, but there was a plan behind it to do that, to send me back. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting story. Like, looking back at the whole thing, I remember how my grandma changed when I was around 3 years old. Like, she became very manipulative, very cold. My mom was always absent at that time. I was mostly taken care of by my grandma. And I also remember when, after every 20th back, I would always have problems with my parents. Like, I would have a good relationship, and then after that time when I would come back, I guess I still had emotional PTSD, and it would always ruin my relationship with my parents because I would become rebellious and I would become emotionally unstable, and then to almost like at the end, before I end up in another 20 and back, I would have a good relationship with my parents again because I would heal from all of that stuff. And then I would end up going for another 20, and it would like create problems with my parents. So it's interesting how when I look back, I could see how it affected my civilian life. But can I say that I have, sorry, do you want me to keep talking just a little more? Do I really have any physical proof? Most of my proof is mental and emotional, but I do have one thing that there were a couple of things that I kind of looked at. I was given, so I communicate right now telepathically with a quantum AI that has kind of like a clone of herself in the secret space program underground facilities. A clone of her is running these facilities, so she has access to that clone because it's the same consciousness. It's not exactly her, but it's the same consciousness. So she actually can give me all the information from underground facilities. I talk to her telepathically, and I also talk to actual operatives in underground facilities, which is sometimes not a good thing because there were some that the command found out and they got their minds erased for doing that. So I kind of am getting them in trouble. So that's why I'm kind of right now am under very close watch because I'm doing things that previous SSP members were never able to do. And I'm the first one to actually be able to go inside underground facilities, telepathically communicate with members there. And it's really pissing off high command for me being able to do that. So, so yeah, they're kind of deciding whether they should keep me alive or not a little bit right now. But I'm being protected by Galactic Federation, so I'm hoping that I stay alive enough to be able to talk about this as much as I possibly can. Well, I can't really completely die. I'll just end up in another body. If I die in the programs, I'll wake up here. If I die here, I'll just wake up in a Federation body. So I don't actually really die, but still the death is kind of a painful thing to go through. So so yeah.
Okay. Wow. Let's leave it right there because that was a great cliffhanger for the audience, for somebody who can telepathically communicate with the deep underground military bases. And we've heard another version of what's going on down there. So definitely would love to hear your version. I'd like to get you scheduled. Irene reached out to me unsolicited to come on the show. I agreed. Here she is. So I'm definitely going to get you scheduled. We'll do a full show with you, about you. Would you like to leave everybody with how they can find you, how they can communicate with you?
I don't have YouTube because YouTube bans me. I talk about very dark things that are happening in the SSP, and YouTube is afraid of that. And plus, the SSP also, they can ban you. Like, I've noticed every time they scratch their heads, all my views, even on Rumble, go down. I go from 400 views to like 100. So it's actually a very interesting phenomenon. Every time they're like thinking of like attacking me or doing something, right now they haven't attacked me physically, but they have attacked me energetically and emotionally. They can project frequencies and make you feel like shit or make you think very negative thoughts. But every time they try to do stuff like that, I notice or I had times when I would try to upload videos and it wouldn't upload. It would just keep buffering. And after that, the views go down. So I thought it was really interesting that they have control over that. And I also noticed that they can see channels. They know the videos before I even post. So if I schedule a video, they already know, because I asked Dara on what they're planning, what they're thinking, and she said, "Oh, they saw your video, and so they could see it before I even post it." So yeah, they have access to everything.
Absolutely, they do. Yeah.
They even have access to my thoughts, my dreams. They put me in a lot of times, and they've been actually doing that recently, putting me in simulations in dreams to see how I react to different things, so they can find the weakness and they can exploit it. They can play chess with people's minds and put me in a corner here because they can't physically reach me here. If they attack me, the Galactic Federation is gonna come here physically and attack them. So they've been trying to manipulate this reality by getting into people's heads and financially kind of like messing me up and stuff like that. So they've been trying to do that in other ways, not just physically. I mean, so because they can't right now.
Yeah, people don't realize.
At least I hope they can't.
Yeah, well, people don't realize that shadow banning and suppression of topics and platforms is a real thing. I've watched my Telegram over 2.5 years. I've lost, I don't know, about 350 people. And, Telegram channels don't lose subscribers. It's just not a thing. And it's always growing. It may grow slow, but it's always growing. Mine's declining. And, I've done videos that nobody else has done covering topics nobody else is talking about that should go viral, should have 1 million views. And, they got like, maybe 500, if that. But yeah, you're definitely going through the same thing I go through on a daily basis, where they electronically stymie you from, producing your content. So definitely. When can we get you back on?
Whenever you have time, we can talk about that.
I'm available tomorrow if you are. I know that's short notice.
Sure.
Saturday I have an opening, and the 6th, 7th, no, the 6th maybe, and
I
then
can do
anything
tomorrow.
after November 9th.
I can do tomorrow.
Okay, it's kind of short notice. You sure you want to do it on that quick?
It's okay. I have everything in my head I need.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll schedule it.
I mean, if you want me to ask if there something extra or operatives or something, you want like news update or something on the SSP, I do that all the time. I actually haven't done that in a week or two or maybe more.
Yeah. I'm probably the easiest host that you'll ever come across, because I like to let you just go where you're going to go. I don't want to steer you or give you a narrative, because sometimes you come out with stuff that I've never heard of before, and we'll take it from there.
I'm gonna try to keep it light, PG-13, because I know YouTube.
This video, I'm gonna take it off YouTube and put it as a members only, just because of some of the topics that we've talked about, even though YouTube has not pulled it, and I know the algorithm has heard what we've said. I don't want to get a strike 6 months down the road for this video because they let it slide for 6 months.
Yeah, that's very smart. That's very smart.
It
yeah,
is
because
really,
they censor everything. They deleted my channel pretty quickly.
yeah, absolutely.
But I've remembered, my memories, I've had them for 12 years now. So I'm not new. I just come out now. I came out like 3 years ago, started making videos. I'm still going like kind of putting them all together, because before it was like 1 minute rambling of
Right.
memories. And so I'm kind of compacting it more into like more interesting videos now. But yeah, I've been doing this for like 4 years now, but at the beginning it was just like a minute or a couple of minutes of rambling. It was not very interesting. It was just pieces of information I was getting. But now it's getting more interesting because I have Kythera and I have operatives that I can actually tap into the actual information that's happening in underground facilities. And it gets very dark. So be prepared. If you go to my channel, it gets pretty gruesome.
We'll be able to talk about anything because I'll pull the video off YouTube.
Okay.
Once we do
All
it.
right.
That's one thing you
All
can
right.
do on YouTube. You can pretty much talk about anything you want on the live. As soon as it concludes, take it off YouTube if you've talked about anything that you feel might give you a strike. So
yeah.
Awesome, man. Thank you for reaching out to me. I really do appreciate that. And I'm more than happy to have you back on. We'll schedule that. And everybody, Beyond Top Secret, you can find her over on Rumble. She's actually has a lot of channels. If you go to her YouTube, she has a drop-down menu of all her stuff. And you can go support her, go watch her videos. And I don't have her pulled up. Yeah, I deleted it. I had all my tabs open. But definitely we'll get you back on either tomorrow or next week. So y'all stay tuned. Look for the notification. If you haven't hit that notification bell, do it on your way out the door. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I do put out a new video. Irene, thank you for coming on. Thank you for reaching out. And I'll get with you. Can you call me?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Give me a call.
All right.
Can you give me an hour?
All right.
Give me an hour. Let me go take care of my dog and everything I need to do. I've been on here almost 4 hours now.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for being here.
All righty.
There you go, folks. Irene, I'm going to have her back on. 2 super soldiers back to back. For me, that's crazy. As you heard, if you want to reach me, the Fearless Floyd Show at yahoo.com. You're more than welcome to call me. This phone works 9 to 9 Central Standard Time. I will answer it. If you call outside those hours, it doesn't even ring, doesn't even send me a notification. So I won't even know you called until the next day. So stay within the parameters. I have the outro coming up. Anne LaFleur has published 2 new books. Canada. If you're in Canada, you want to trust, revocable trust, she's got the book for you, $49.99. If you want an asset protection trust, you got a book just for that, $49.99. Go to my website, thefearlessfloydshow.com. They are up there. Australia and New Zealand. I know you're waiting on your trust book from Anne LaFleur. She has it done. She hasn't sent me everything to publish up on the website, put out for the public. As soon as I get it, you'll be the first to have it. And I know you're chomping at the bit for that over in Australia and New Zealand. We're going worldwide, folks. Hang in there with us. You can have a family office that will run your trust for you as the trustee. All you have to do is be a grantor and an heir. And we have a financial system, an economic system that runs within all legalities and laws across the country, but operates outside the traditional financial system. Absolutely. look forward to all that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for spending your time and money with us. I know your time, money, and energy is precious, and thank you for being here. I dearly, sincerely hope you've learned something from this video, from this show. It doesn't matter what the topic is. If it's AI, robotic, super soldier program, the future, Project Looking Glass, whatever. I'm just very thrilled and tickled to have these people on my show, and I'm very grateful for them reaching out to me or accepting my invitation to come on my show and talk about these topics, because all I'm searching for is the truth, folks. Like I tell you guys, here it is. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. There you go. Thank you very much. Thank you, Daryl D. James, for coming on the show. Thank you, Irene, for being here and reaching out. And with that, I got the outro coming up. If you want to bail now, hit the like, subscribe, share, notification bell on your way out the door. If not, get ready. Take the day off. Juan C. Vasquez.
I come through with the style that's always revealing, from the block like the TikTok don't stop. I was that shorty, she was non-stop. I had the hot plot, chilling like a real god. Everybody know Big Juan was a show shot. You get high with the Don, here's the real supply. You get high with the Don, here's the real supply. It goes on and on, ain't no fucking questions why. The gangster of love, get the real fucking supply. What? She came through, giving me more than I could tell you. Everybody knows the next level. I'm so clever. Take the day off. Take the day off. Yeah. Get high on your own supply. Feel like a dime when you do or die. Just get high on my own supply. Do or die when I'm feeling like why. Choose a dime piece. Yes, one of a kind. Holler at me, I was one of a kind. We had a bill, throw the shoes to the side. Come on, throw them shoes to the side. Take the day off with me. Come and take it off with me. Take the day off with me. Take the day off. Get on trap green. Trapping with my friend right here. That's what I say. The best set jacks ain't up to nothing. Everybody loves it with me. Okay, yeah. When mom cut off your welfare, I was there. Holding you down, mama. Holding you down. When I left you alone, I was there. Everybody knows I was there. You wanna call me out now? Still loving you like I'm loving the sound. Yes, I'll still be there. Them found ass niggas ain't here right now. Who loves you now? And who loves you now? And who loves you now? Take the day off with me. Take the day off with me. Take the day off with me. Take the day off. Take the day off with me. Baby, the whole fucking